Morning, sir.
There we go. Had my wrong speaker on.
All good, man. Rock and roll.
Yep. So apparently I did create a webinar, not an actual meeting. I'm having to promote everyone to panelists here. Interesting.
Nice.
Yeah. I thought for sure I had it scheduled as just a normal Zoom meeting, and here we go. I'm like,
all gravy. Mr. Dave, good morning, sir. Oh,
you're muted, Dave.
Read my lips. No,
Start doing sign language, buddy.
Morning, Lindsay.
Morning, Lindsay.
Good morning.
Here.
I'm gonna mute while I pour my loud beverage.
Ooh, that's what it is.
Elaine, hello.
Hey, Gordon.
So great to see you.
You too.
Morning, Eric.
Good
Morning,
morning.
Steve. Morning, Andrea.
Morning,
Morning,
everybody.
Richard. Morning, Elaine. I think I've got everybody else.
Miss Sewell.
You're welcome.
Good
Eric.
morning.
Good to see everybody.
You've grabbed it. Oh, yeah.
You guys are awesome. Thank you for your message, Dave.
Oh, great to be connected with you.
Got me in my feels, man.
Takes one to know one, brother.
Sir. All right.
So we're going to have most of the speakers said they're going to be here, and the ones, there's a couple that are going to pop in a little late and a couple that are going to leave a little early, and those that aren't going to be here have agreed to record a video of themselves for any questions we ask. For any time they're not here, they'll go ahead and record a video of them answering the questions that were asked. Give it one more minute here. Morning, Michael.
I almost got caught up in a show called God Family Football. Good Lord.
Wow.
It almost didn't get me today. I almost got sucked into it. Started binge watching it this morning. Man, oh man.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started as people are filtering in because we are limited on time. I was thinking about this with the number of questions that may come in and the number of speakers and each one going to be answering the question. This could take some time. So whoever has the first question, please use, or when you're asking questions, please use the hand raise button, and then I'll call on whoever has their hand raised first, and we'll go from there. So whenever you're ready, first person, fire away. Otherwise, I'll go to my questions. Who's got a question for our panel? Morning, Mary.
Good morning.
All right, we're putting it to the floor. Who's got the first question for our speakers? Go for it, Mary. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, Elaine, I asked, you just popped
No,
in.
no,
I asked...
no. Mary can go first. That's fine.
Okay, keep your hand up though, so I know to come to you next. Mary, go ahead, fire away.
My question is, when you are determining how many clients is enough or how many clients is too much, what process do you put in place to ensure that you're not creating overwhelm and that you're able to serve at the highest level?
Dave, let's start with you, please.
Right. So it's a beautiful question, by the way. First one is that it's made up. So I coached for nearly 10 years before I gave up my day job, which meant that the number of people that I could work with in a way that was meaningful was somewhat reduced. So I made up a number of 5 people. 5 people was a full practice for me at that point. Now, the beautiful part about this is that because it's made up, you have the opportunity to fill that practice and then operate from a full practice. There's something about operating from a full practice that makes everything easier. In my own mind, in our own mind, when we're dealing with people from a place of where we are a scarce resource and they need us, we don't need them, everything flows so much easier. So whatever that is for you, make it up and then ebb and flow. Like if it's too much, back it off. I would start with, if you're starting out, I don't know what your status is with your business, but when I was starting out, I would have shorter agreements so that if I was overwhelmed, I would be able to fulfill on what I had given my word to, and then back off. And my new number of full was -1 or 2, you know. And then when I went full time, that expanded. And again, it's a made up number. So if I really want to work with someone and they really want to work with me, I can make space for them in addition to my full practice. So that's my answer to that question.
Great.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Michael, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'd love to jump in on this one. So I think the big piece to this, to answer for yourself, is about scalability. For one, I like to reverse engineer anything that I do. So how much is it that you need to earn and to be happy, to be, what you would consider successful for yourself? And then how much are you willing to work in exchange for that? Because it really boils down to how much you're going to price yourself out at. The bottom line that you have to be real careful of is when you are doing a lot of one-on-one work, there's only 2 ways to raise your revenue stream. It's either by charging more per hour or by working more hours. And at some point, you're going to hit a ceiling potentially on how much you can charge on your per hour basis. So if you want to be scalable, then it really is a matter of how do you build a business that allows you to serve one to many. So there's so many other factors that come into play as to how many clients you can have. But really, you got to start with what is it that you're trying to sell? What are you packaging? What is your coaching program? Is it group program, one-on-one? All those elements will come into play as well. So I would love to support you with that. It would be a matter really of dialing into how do you like to work? What are you wanting to do really to dig deeper into that?
Thank you.
Steve.
You calling me?
Yes, please.
Beautiful. So I'm kind of going to mirror what Dave and Michael said already. I look at it as, I like what Michael said about how much money do you want to make. It was probably the best advice I got about 7 or 8 years ago. when I said, how many clients should I have? And he said, well, what do you need to make? You know, is it $10,000 a month? So if that's the case, is it one $10,000 client, or is it 10 $1,000 clients and so forth? And such a cool question, because I never thought about it before. So you got to take what Michael was saying and what Dave was saying. If you take your time and money and put that as an equation, and then it's got to equal the integrity that you want to bring towards your client. You know, what is the word that you're bringing to your practice, and how are you willing to show up for them? Because I'm pretty sure that we can all raise our hand and say we've been overbooked before, and who suffers is and we might think it's us, but it's not. It's our clients. So I love what Michael was saying about scalability, and one of the coolest things was bringing group coaching into the practice. And the fallacy I think that most people, when they're walking into coaching, is that I would give less value because it's a group. And I beg to differ. I think in some instances there's actually more value brought into, and when you're doing a group coaching, and you're able to do two things. You can scale yourself, you know, with the same amount of time you're putting in, and you're also helping those people that maybe they can't really maybe the 6 month or 12-month contract for one-on-one is not in their budget. So it's you're able to help people at a different level. And then what ends up happening is those group people, those group clients, they're gonna move themselves up. They'll funnel themselves up into your one-on-one programs. And that's when what Michael was talking about. You know, I worked with a coach, and he says, I only take 5 one-on-one clients a year. I was like, wow, that's awesome. And he has 3 group coachings where he does 5, 10, 20, 20 and 50 clients, and then he caps it off. I thought that was genius.
Cool.
Thank you.
Lindsay,
Yes.
your turn.
Oh, my turn. Okay. So, a full transparency, I actually don't do any one-on-one coaching anymore because it is time consuming, and I'm homeschooling my children, and I don't want to have the clients suffering. I don't want me suffering, and I don't want my clients suffering and not getting my full attention and being able to fulfill on that integrity. So what looks like full for me at this point it really boils down to what are, you know, again, I mirror what they're going to say, like, how much is it that I need to make to be comfortable in my business? And what are the best products, programs, and services that I can offer to my clients and my potential people that will also bring in additional income? You know, if I want to run something as a group, or I want to do a workshop, that's great. But I'm also thinking about what are the other things that they need that maybe I don't offer that I can refer them to as well, and that bring in some like referral commissions and things like that. So I'm very much about collaborating with other coaches and other trainers and mentors in the industry that can help take some of that one-on-one off of my plate, but also allow me to earn the income that can support our family.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Eric, would you like to go next?
Tony, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I think the only thing I want to add, it's kind of along the lines of what everyone's already shared, is coaching is a business. And so there's math to that business. And so just take a step back and look at the math of the money you want to make, the number of clients you want to serve, how many hours a week you want to work. And it's just kind of this giant puzzle. And then I like to get really clear, like my current offering, I'm looking for 20 people. And I like being specific around that because it creates a very clear intention of exactly what I want to create and what I'm looking for in terms of number of clients. So that's the only thing I'll add.
Great. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Brendan.
Yeah, morning, Mary. So they all beat me to it. I was gonna say the same thing, just reverse engineer, and here's what I want to make. This is what it looks like. What I would ask for you is, do you have like your own proprietary system, like 3-step, 5-step, 12-step that you always bring somebody through?
Not exactly.
Okay, so one thing that was tremendously helpful for me is that if you have your own proprietary system, your own recipe, every time someone comes to work with you based on what your end result is, it's always step 1, always step 2, always step 3. And for me, it allows me to be super scalable, right? So regardless of how I'm going to work with them, if I'm going to get them this result, I'm always going to bake the cake exactly the same way to get the same taste over and over. So if you have the one thing that you do and you're able to say, okay, well, regardless of where you are in the process, maybe you skip over step one, you go to step two. Tell me real quick, what's the transformation that you get for your client?
I'm a 3 principles coach as well as an E-Myth business coach. So I help people work more on their business than in their business.
Okay, what's the end result in what period of time?
They have less overwhelm and they're able to put a structure in place following the 7 dynamics of E-Myth.
Okay, so when you bring somebody through that, do you change how you always do it, or is it still like the same kind of standard when you work with somebody?
It's based on the individual because I mostly work on the individual, even though they come for systems and processes, is
Okay.
whatever's standing in the way.
Got it. So happy to deep dive with you. But one of the things I would suggest is that if you always find what you're doing is always different, it might behoove you to focus on one type of individual, one type of client that's in a very specific style or just where they are in their business. Because then when you bring them in, then it's a perfect fit for you. And what it allows you to do is to then have a systematized thing that can either be do it yourself, done with you, done for you, i.e. something that's more plug and play, they go at their own speed and pace, group coaching, or the one-on-one. And from that perspective, you're not always having to try and form fit to that client. They're coming into your process. It's the right fit, hand in glove, and then you can scale it and grow from there.
Okay. Thank you.
So, thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Brendan. So Aaron, so the question was, how do you decide when you have a full practice or not?
Yeah, well, I love what everyone said. I'm in complete agreement. The thing about doing group coaching too, if you're doing coaching, you usually start off doing one-on-one, but when you're doing group coaching as well, it gives you the ability to pull back on the one-on-one coaching at any time. When you figure, oh my gosh, this is too much, you want to work less, you can always stop doing the one-on-one. It puts you in that position where you can do that. And also, one thing to consider for coaching too, depending on the kind of coaching you do, some coaching is a lot more, it takes more out of you. Do you know what I mean? Like some of the coaching I do, which is like, a 4-hour breakthrough session where we're going into the unconscious mind and the whole bit, that is draining. There is no way I could do 40 hours of that kind of coaching a week. Like that kind of coaching, I could probably only do like maximum 10 hours because it's so draining. So you do want to look at the kind of coaching you're doing as well. But yeah, again, a matter of how much do you want to make? How many clients can you actually serve? And then the group coaching, gives you the ability to cut out the one-on-one if you ever, decide to do that.
Great. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank
Ellen.
you.
Oh, mute.
I know you just know, I know you just did, but could you repeat the question one more time? I want to sort of let it roll in my ears again. Thanks.
Mary, would you like to repeat it?
Yeah, what I'm establishing is the number of clients that I could effectively have in my practice without creating overwhelm and being able to serve them at the same time. What's too little, what's too much.
Right. How to make that determination.
Well, the way I make it for me is I do what I want to do. Like I've talked about, I work with people that I want to work with, and I don't work with anyone I don't. And I talk to them and see if I believe that I can help them. And when I have as many of those people as I want to work with, given what else I'm doing in life, and I have lots of things, writing books, doing music and stuff, that's full for me. Correlating that with money, you can make as much money as you want. Money is easy to create. The thing that determines how much money you make is the level of result that you're bringing So when I think about clients, I think about getting at least 5 times. They're going to invest X amount of money. Everybody knows what this ball of money is. If I can't work with them and create a solution for them that's at least 5 times that big, and hopefully 10, but somewhere between 5 and 10 times that big, then it isn't really a good fit. So I have both group models and private models. I have some products that I sell that have come out of my research and work and the books that I've written. But I'm full when I've got as much of that energy and life that I want to devote to that piece of life in my week or my month. And the money just works itself out for me.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, Kellen. And so for me personally, it's a little bit of what several people have said. And so for me, I've had this conversation with almost every panelist in this group at one point in time. And for me, it's also starts with how much do you want to make each month? And that can vary. Just this is the minimum. I need to make this much minimum every month. And then from there, how many one-on-one clients can I take on comfortably to serve them and still have the time that I want with my family and my friends and hobbies? And then do I want to do group coaching? If so, how much can I take on? And then from there, that helps determine what you're going to charge. Because if you're going to take on 5 clients, you need to make X number per month. Now I'm going to have to charge these clients for X number a month or X number per package. And then again, the biggest factor for me, and from what it sounds like for most people, is how much time you want to dedicate to your clients and how much time you want for yourself and your freedom. And then the pricing and the dollars come from there.
Thank you.
All right, Elaine, let's hear your question.
I guess it's a kind of a question. I mean, what I struggle with, or rather the story I tell myself, is that I'm starting out professionally. And although I've been doing it for years and not charging, I'm really pushing it professionally. And my story is, how can I push myself? When I listen to everyone here, and thank you all so much, it was so wonderful. I can't stand up and say, I've got 22 years experience and I've worked with Steve Chandler and I've got 1 million pets. I can't do that. So how, when you're starting out and you don't have the client list and you don't have the email list and you don't have the content that's sitting there waiting to, I mean, Pinterest, that I was like, oh my God, I love Pinterest. But if you haven't got the content, how do you promote yourself forward? And I guess the other side of it for me as well is that I agree with Ankush. I mean, coach should be revered. It should be so up there with everything else. And yet everybody's jumping on the bandwagon and, you know, getting a qualification or whatever and saying, oh, I'm a coach, I'm an all singing, all dancing coach. So how do you promote yourself and how do you move forward as a professional when you haven't got that professional background to say, I've done this and I've done that and I've achieved this and I've achieved that?
Great question. Great question. So before I call on the first person, let's, as panelists, let's try to keep the responses to 3 minutes-ish so that we can get through as many questions as possible. So let's go backwards. Kellen.
I don't advertise. My business plan's on the wall and it says I never look for clients. I look for people to love, opportunities to serve, and problems to solve. And so in the course of life, I meet lots of people. I don't do much of the grocery store line kind of stuff that people sometimes talk about, but I have all kinds of ways to just meet people. I belonged to networking groups before and so forth, but I don't go through the method of, can you tell me what your coaching is, Elaine?
Well, I'm just starting out and I guess I've just fixed it like a holistic listening coach. So I run listening circles. So it's really about deep listening and moving forward that so that people are listening to themselves, hearing their stories, etc.
If I listen, if you teach me and coach me, what do I get when we're done? I hear myself better, so I can what?
Well, it's not only you hear yourself better, that you're better able to listen to your instincts. And in doing that, you can hear your own stories and you can solve those stories, but it goes further than that. If you're listening to yourself properly, you're also listening to other people properly. And if you're listening to other people properly, you're giving them the space to be heard, the space to take on, the space and time to actually hear themselves and be able to speak to you. And I really, really believe it's the way of stopping all generational trauma.
Because if I go through and you help me, do I have better relationships? Do I make more money? What happens to me?
You have better relationships, you'll have more self-esteem, and you'll be more successful in the sense of you might make more money, but you'll be happier with who you are. You'll know who you are.
Do you charge me in dollars or happiness?
At the moment, I charge you in happiness.
Okay. If you're going to charge somebody in dollars, almost always you have to be able to relate the outcome of your service to some kind of financial context. That's not difficult to do, and people shy away from that and they're scared of it. But walking right through to what's going to happen to them and how that ties in to money and how it relates to what you're charging is an easy way. I never have any trouble enrolling clients. They ask me to enroll. The reason they do is because we've walked through that conversation and tied what they want to some money. And then it's like you can either decide that's a big enough pile that you're going to get for what I'm charging, or it isn't. And one of the difficulties with this whole coaching mess is that we deal too much in woo-woo stuff. It isn't tied to how it works in my life. And I'm not charging in woo-woo, I'm charging in pounds. And as soon as I tell somebody so many thousand pounds, the scale slams to the table. And the other side of that balance has got to feel good, or people are going to get weird about paying it. So your ability to talk someone through wherever you meet them, and you can meet them anywhere. A bunch of social posting and stuff to me is secondary. You have to be able to talk to someone, get them to tell you that listening business, and then take it to a place where they see a benefit. My 3 minutes are up.
Thank you.
Brendan.
Yeah, morning, Elaine. So I'd say three recommendations. One, if you don't have other people's stories or testimonials, use yours. That's one of the best ones that you can do. Hey, here's where I was at. This is a struggle I went through. Here's where I got to. And then that becomes one of the strongest ones that you can stand behind. Second one is I would suggest using some type of beta group. So if you haven't had a series of individuals come through and actually go through your process, I would have them do that. In terms of something tangible, just like Kellen said, one of the best things to do if it's not linked to financial, because your feelings, your emotions a lot of times can be subjective. I would have some sort of proprietary assessment that you give, because the way that I'm going to feel on something, let's just say day 1 versus day 90, if I say I'm feeling a 4 out of 10 on happiness, and by the time I'm done I'm a 9 out of 10, that creates a tangible number that now you can use as something to promote. I did actually create like an assessment tracker template, so I put it in the chat. Feel free to use that if you'd like. And then also, I'm an advocate for challenges. Part of the reason why I would say throw a virtual event is because it's a way for you to test your model and your theory. So you could say, hey guys, I'm going to help you achieve XYZ percentage of happiness increase in this period of time for free. And you get to know really quick over the course of a short period of time, are people into it? What questions would they ask? Would they actually buy your thing afterwards? So I think between those three, that should help.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Eric.
Call me, Tony.
Yes, please.
Okay, cool. Couple quick things, Elaine. We got to figure out a way to sell you. So how I would do it if I was you is I would say to a prospect, and it starts in the discovery process. You got to find a problem in discovery that you can help them solve. So you got to really put the effort into discovery, and you find this problem that you can help them solve. And then what I would do is I would use a price discount, and I would say, I'm new to coaching. The price of my coaching is whatever. Because I'm new, make it a benefit. I'm going to offer you a discount, and I need success stories right now. So I'm going to roll out the red carpet, and I'm going to go the extra mile for you. And so you can actually sell being new as a benefit. And so I just do a bunch of discovery calls and use that technique to get a few clients under your belt and build your confidence.
Thank you.
Great. Aaron. Oh. Did she walk away? Aaron.
Sorry, I was just grabbing coffee. It's early here on the West Coast. So I agree with everything being said, Elaine. So I have a question for you. You were saying you can't put yourself out there. Why not?
I
You
guess-
have to get at, sorry, go ahead.
No, I guess it comes back to that thing, doesn't it? I'm not as good as, I'm not enough. It's for sure, it's just it's a scratch in a record.
You have to, in my opinion, first thing you want to do is be able to answer that question and deal with that belief, or nothing else will happen. So why can't I put myself out there? And really monitor how you respond to that question, not only in your mind, but in your body. Where do you feel it in your body? Do you get that feeling when you think about putting yourself out there and talking about your experience and all of that? Right? Sometimes we don't want to brag. I have 25 years of experience. I have done this, but you kind of have to. When you're in business, not necessarily brag, but you have to be able to talk about yourself and your experience. That's how you're going to get clients. They have to know that you can help them. So I have two quick questions for you. Have you put any time into learning what you've learned to be able to help people? Have you invested any time?
I mean, I've been working with a coach for some years, and I've done some studying.
And have you put any time into acquire your skills and knowledge over the last 25 years?
Oh no, yeah, my life is, I get my life experience, and I know that I've got a really broad range of rolling experiences. So I know those are my qualifications more than the qualifications, and yet here I am.
And how much money have you put any money into your education over the last 25 years? There you go. You need to be able to charge for your time. You know, I put, like, when I make my offer on a webinar, I actually show how much time, well, you can't really show time, but I actually will show people how much money I've invested in my own skills and knowledge. And people are like, well, I guess I'm getting a deal then. You've put $400,000, like most of us have put in so much time and money into learning what we do. So you're darn right we can charge for it.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Thank you, Aaron. Lindsay.
Hi, Elaine. Oh, I love this question because I feel like I can really resonate with you. And I remember when I started coaching, I didn't have any letters behind my name. I didn't have any certifications. And I remember thinking, the first time I literally asked for money in exchange for what I was going to provide, I closed my mouth because I thought I was going to throw up, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen next. And then the person was like, oh, okay, how do I pay that? And I was like, okay, here we go. So sometimes it is just leaping off that cliff and just like, I'm going to put it out there, and then I'm going to zip my lips and wait for what they're going to say. Because I was like, oh my gosh, that was a big moment. The other thing is I really mirror what Brendan said when he said, you know, sharing other people's success stories. It doesn't matter if you've charged somebody, if you've gotten them a transformation and a result. And if you're the transformation and result, then you get to share that story. And one of the ways that, you know, I'm the big email marketing advocate, I loved building a list because it felt like a very personal and intimate place for me to share those stories instead of putting on the big show and posting all over social media. I got to share the qualifications that I had with people and the transformations that I was getting for myself and other people in a way that was a personal and a way to bond with the right types of people that I wanted to work with. And that made the enrollment process very easy, because by the time we got to having a call and we're talking one-on-one, and I'm making the offer, they've already seen those transformations. They've seen those stories, and they're very excited about having that because they can see that potential for themselves.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Lindsay. Steve.
All of that. That was awesome. Let me hit my timer. There we go. So I think there's a couple things. I think Aaron touched on something really powerful there. And what's the underneath of the I can'ts, right? You know, if you mirror that, if you start looking at these fear of failure, fear of success, fear of I'm not enough, and all this kind of stuff, and that's all great. It's usually I don't want to look bad, right? So if we really hold on to this, the one thing that you're probably, this is an assertion, right? I don't have to be right on this, but one of the things, if it's the fear of looking bad, there's Aaron says, where's the feeling, and what does the feeling cause you to do, right? If it causes you to stop, the one thing you're fearing the most is causing you to create the one thing you fear the most. So just kind of hang out with that, because, and then Brandon and Lindsay and Eric said some really powerful stuff. And I love that Eric said, give a discount, right? I like the word scholarship as well. Say, you know what? I really love what we're doing here. I'd love to give you a scholarship of this. And I think that's a powerful way. Doing beta groups is awesome. And then it goes over to what Brendan was talking about. Look, people don't care what your certifications are. I'd love to say they do. I have a ton of certifications, and not one person was like, hey, so great call today. What was your certification? And I was like, oh, you know, I've never one time heard that. Or who coached you? It's not, hi, my name is Steve Krivda. I'm a this, and this. It's hi, my name's Steve. How are you? You know, and it's bypassing the transactional conversation into the experiential conversation. So, I mean, I've had conversations with people. I sit at church, and I'll meet somebody new. I'm like, so what do you do? And they're like, oh, I do this, and this. And if my very first question is like, wow, what kind of challenges come with that? And then they tell me, and I'm like, that's amazing. They go, well, what do you do? And I go, I actually help people deal with exactly the same challenge you just talked about. They're like, wow, how do you do that? And I'm like, well, and then it all of a sudden it has no, they don't care what my experience was. We created something really powerful there in that moment where they had something that's been hanging out with them that they may not even have thought it was there. And you create a different experience with them. And this is where Brendan's and Lindsay were really talking powerfully in the testimonies. Look, I don't go through people's credentials. I go right to their testimonies every single time. And then I look at the dates of them. Sometimes they're from like 2011. I'm like, all right, cool. So I look for something new. But the experience and what other people are saying about you, look, I don't know how many thousands of hours I've given away in coaching just to gain the experience or gain the testimony from somebody. So if you go into the conversation, Elaine, with what people are mirroring here, and you go into it, how can I serve this person so much that all they want to do is tell somebody about me? And then you don't have to worry about who you are or who you're not. It's always about them. And you remove yourself from the equation. That's when you serve to the highest ability.
Brilliant. Thank you.
You made it.
Michael.
I'm going to piggyback on what Steve was saying there, because you know, you were the first to say it, and I'm glad you jumped in on it. Is that nobody? I've never had anybody ask for my credentials, and quite honestly, I've seen certified coaches who don't know their butt from a hole in the ground. Okay, so the certification to me doesn't mean anything. There are a lot of places out there offering certifications that are worthless. So I would say don't let that stop you. I think the best thing that you can do is live by example. Okay, I have a 7-figure business, and people come to me because they know that I've built this business and they want to learn, how did I do that? And so when you live the example that you are, now, of course, you've got to employ methods to get yourself out into the world. But once you do that and people see, wow, that's what I want. She's living the way I want to live. That is the best proof you can put out there. So that would be my advice on it, is just live the way you teach people to live.
Thank you.
You bet.
Great. Dave.
Elaine, I love you.
I love you too.
I know you do. What everyone said is super, super valuable. I'd like to give you 3 things that you may not be aware of that are superpowers that you have. Firstly, In the American mind, your voice is the most important thing anyone will hear because you have that amazing British accent all day. So we walk into a room and somebody can hear me talking. And it's like, Dave's yammering, Dave's yammering. And then Elaine speaks up and says, good morning, how are you? And everybody goes, most important thing I'm hearing today. Can't got to pay attention to that. So your voice is possibly your first superpower. Your second superpower that I know about you is the way that you see and listen to people. So when you bring those two things together, and the third thing is your lovingness. When you serve people, when you come into a short-term agreement with them to assist them, you're going to make a difference. And that becomes the source of the testimonials. That becomes the source of the knowingness and the trusting of self that you do not just theoretically make a difference, not just that you've done the time with the other, with coaches and in training and things like that, but the difference that you can see in others is evident to them as well as to you. I love the evaluation that Brendan sent out. If you haven't had a chance to look at that, boy, look at that and adopt either that one or one of your own. I check in with my clients all the time to see whether they're getting what they're getting. Are you? And it's kind of gratifying. Sometimes it's like, we've got a 6-month contract, 3 months in, I'm like, it feels like we got everything you guys signed up for. What do we want to create now? And they'll either confirm or deny said allegations. So the thing is, at that point, it's simply to play with the people that you want to play with. It's one other thing that's nudging me, which is acknowledgement. When you acknowledge the people that you're working with, it tells you and them what you see in each other. And I have listened to your acknowledgements, and they are powerful. So please use those superpowers that you have to make the difference that you can make and expand from there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. So I'm going to piggyback on what everybody said so far. And I do agree with what Dave said about the love and be yourself and that accent is amazing. But the one piece I think is kind of missing from everyone's responses is part of your question was, how do you get yourself out there? How do you get yourself out there, especially when you're first starting out? And part of that, if you watched Mark Harbert on day one, I will have to, and most people on this call will have, or who have been coaches or are coaches, is the video is really, and whether it's on social media, whether it's some other way, while you're trying to reach people, just go live or do a video and post it on there and tell your, like Brendan was talking about, tell your story or tell, just sometimes be vulnerable, sometimes talk about, something that excites you, just help people see who that person is that we know Elaine as. Let people see that person, that real you, the real you. And then from there, you'll be surprised how many people reach out and say, hey, can we just have a conversation? Can we chat? But that people don't see you, they're not going to have that. They're not going to have that reason to come and reach out to you. And so let them see you and let them see the real you that we know. So.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.
No problem. All right. Vicky has a question. Oh, can't hear you. I think you're muted. Yeah. Still muted. Still can't hear you. Is your Zoom, if you look at the bottom left on your Zoom screen, it says mute right there. There's an up arrow. You might have to change.
Shows that she's unmuted, Tony.
What's that?
It shows that she's unmuted. I think.
No, I know it. She may have the wrong microphone setting on her Zoom.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So if you go to where it says mute down on the left, there's a little arrow, up arrow. If you click that, it'll give you an option to choose which microphone. So make sure you got the right one. Nope, still can't hear you. For some reason, if it doesn't work, you can type it into the chat, your question in the chat if you would like. Nope. Okay. No, still nothing. Would you like to type it into the chat?
You could log back in, Vicky, on your smartphone. If you have Zoom on your smartphone, that would probably solve it.
Yeah, good call, Eric. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't you work on your sound, and let's see if somebody else has a question, and then we can come back to you. Anybody else have a question that they want asked from the panel? If not, I've got a couple here we can move on to. Melissa, Teresa, Lisa.
I think Richard raised his hand.
Oh, there it is. I'm sorry, there it is. Thank you. All right, Richard, go ahead. Oh, now you're muted. There you go.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Wonderful. My question is I heard a lot about coaches. Every coach should have a coach. So where do you go to find a coach?
Wow, great question, Dave.
Beautiful question. And it depends a great deal on what level of investment you're ready and able to make or willing to make. Able is kind of a funny term. Whatever you're willing to make, right? Because you can have a peer coach if you're in a coaching group. There are literally hundreds of people that will want to and be willing to peer coach with you. That's a beautiful place to start. I've been lucky enough to invest in some of the best coaches in the world, and I've discovered that the amount I pay to a coach does not necessarily mean that he or she is able to provide the value that another one provides. So it is a beautiful question. I would always check with their clients. So read the testimonials, and then actually have some conversations with people who've worked with a coach before you choose them. Secondarily, always have a session first just to see if you're a match. I mean, there are people that I've talked to that I thought would be fun to work with, and we're not a match. And there's nothing wrong with that. It just means that I'm not the one for them and they're not the client for me. So the last thing I think I would say is follow inspiration. Like if you've watched somebody for a while and you love what the content that they're putting out, or you've seen how they show up in the world and that resonates with you, follow that resonance, because that will lead you to the people that you are to work with. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Michael.
There we go. I would say that it really depends on what is your area of weakness that you're trying to build upon. Okay, because there are coaches who specialize in very different areas. If you're lacking in the ability to get exposure and you want to do that through YouTube, if you want to get a podcast out there, I'm a podcast coach. That's the type of stuff that I help people do to grow and monetize that. I also do other types of coaching. I have a full year-long academy of students who come through to learn the full business picture. So it's really going to boil down to what type of coaching do you want? And then kind of like, what was just said earlier is then look at who do you want to emulate? Who do you want what they have? Okay. Are they doing the thing that you want to do? Then learn from someone who's doing it. So that would be the point that I would make. Now, where to find those coaches? Just through this type of a thing that we're doing right now, through a summit like this. You're going to find different coaches who are masterful in different arenas that you may want to tap into their expertise. That'd be one place to look at it. Another area is to just ask around and say, hey, who coached you? Who supported you in getting that thing you have that I would also like to have? So that'd be my tip on it would be to just start to look around. They're all around you. You're sitting in a room full of them right here. So check it out.
Did you say somebody's name? Now you're muted, Tony.
I'm like, what's all this silence after I finish
Steve,
talking?
yeah, Steve, you're up.
I was like, I think it's me, but I'm not quite sure.
I turned it off. I didn't want to hear people hear me typing.
That's funny. I love your question, Richard. I went down this path a while back, and there's a few questions that I typically don't just jump in. So I look for questions. You know, what am I missing? What's missing from the equation of getting me to where I want to be? You know, so in finding a coach, first thing you want to probably ask is like, what do I want out of one? Because if it's in the how-to part of it, coaching may or may not be in that space, but I think mentorship is really powerful in that area. You know, I look at the wealth of, I would say, experience over years that are on this panel. And when I sit here and I look at some of the people that are on this panel that I'm honored to be here with, like, I would look for them for mentorship. Like, what did you do? I know my mindset is here. I'll do anything that needs to be done. So I'm kind of, I wouldn't say that I'm beyond most of my stories, but I understand them all. And so when you're looking for what you need, is it the how-to stuff? And if it is the how-to stuff, sometimes you can go to these YouTube channels that are pretty full with a massive amount of knowledge. And then you can find out, pick and choose, because the person may have some incredible knowledge and may be great at what they do, but you might not jive with how they talk. I haven't jived with all of the coaches that I've interviewed. I do go through an interview process when I am looking for my next coach. But in order to narrow that down from the millions of coaches out there, I do a lot of asking. I look for people that have already been coached. And, you know, like one of my buddies is Ray Higdon. I asked him, I'm like, so tell me, who have you worked with in this particular area here? And he'll tell me, you know, and Tony and I have talked about different coaches, and I've had conversations with different people on this panel. Who is it? So that's one of them. And if you already know what to do and how to coach, if you know how to ask the questions, you've got that art down, and you know how to have that enrollment conversation, and you're just not doing it, then take a look at it. You know, is it an ontological coach that I want to do, that I want to work with? Somebody that's really powerful in the way of being of who you are. Is it a mindset coach? You know, I know one person on here that's really good at moving blocks just like that is Erin. You know, her and I have NLP experience, and she's really dived deep into that. She'll see it, you know, and you can pick up on that kind of stuff when somebody asks you, where do you feel in your body? That's not just a thought. That's a whole experience is going on inside of you. So just take a look at, you know, what do I really want? And then start. I love what a few people already said. Interview people, look around, take a look at. I've had some really powerful conversations, some powerful coaches. And I'll say this right before I run out of time. It was the one question my last coach asked me. He's like, do you believe in God? And I was like, oh, yeah. And he goes, then we're going to get along fine. And I just sent him my credit card.
All right, Lindsay.
I thought it was me, but you were muted again. I really liked what Steve said, because I think for me personally, there was very much a difference between the how to and what I'd call like the tactical and strategic things. Like, if I need to build a podcast, how to, I'm going to Michael, right? Like, if he's got the podcast business that I want, that's where I'm going. When it came to transformation personally for me, blocks and limiting beliefs that came up, I was always very intuitive. Who was I being drawn to? Who did I feel connected to? And that a lot of times came through connection with an existing coach or peers in my network, and saying, you know, like, just like Steve said, who are you working with on this? Or reading books and then finding out, you know, is that person somebody that I can coach with? Because I really resonated with what they said. I really resonated with who they are and who they're being. And I want that for myself as well. Because I think it's for me personally, it was two very different things. the who do I want to be and the how to stuff were different types of coaches that I was looking for. And I'm on both screens now. So yes, I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. That was how I looked for and found coaches. And a lot of times it was through my network of people and asking them as well.
Great, great. Aaron.
So I think first I'd love some clarification on, are you asking how to get people to find you as a coach, or how you can find a particular coach?
The clarification is, how can I find a coach?
Okay.
I've got a little background. I've got 20 years experience in counseling. And 10 of that was spent in California State Penitentiaries counseling inmates. I've worked on Byron Katie's staff for the School for the Work for over 3 years. I worked with her. I've taken Steve Chandler's course when he was doing in-person courses years and years ago. This was all a lot of things that were over my head. It's more enough the how-to now that I'm looking for. I'm looking for a coach that can direct me in how to find what Michael Neely does. He does a great job. His presentation was fantastic. I resonated with Akush. I come from a very spiritual background. The same thing with Eric, speaking. I love to speak. I don't need a script to speak. You give me a topic and I can spend an hour and a half expressing that topic. I've been trained by Covington and trauma and a whole bunch of other things. Now I would just like to put it out there, and I just don't know how. So I'm looking for a coach to help me develop a practice.
So there you go, getting clarity. I would say the first thing is getting clarity on what you're looking for in a coach, what outcome you would like to accomplish. So you're already there. You're obviously already fairly clear on that, but pinpointing that and then getting on a call with people and interviewing them and see if you are a good fit. You know, letting them know what you're looking for, finding out how they help people. And I'm a big believer in using your intuition. You know, as Steve was talking and Lindsay was saying, oftentimes you're going to feel somebody or not. In my mind, there's a connection. You either connect with people or you don't. I won't go into why that is, because there's a million reasons on why that is, but really feel into it. I'm really big into if you feel the person or not, because you're going to be spending a lot of time together. So you want to make sure you're kind of the same vibration. Have you ever met somebody and you're just like, whoa, I don't jive with this person. I don't really know specifically why, but you're just at a whole different vibration. So figure out what kind of coaching you're looking for, what kind of outcome you're looking for. Get on some calls with some coaches you think might be a good fit, and then feel into it. It's funny, our intuition is telling us so much. I'm so aware of it now that if I know, like I'm going against my intuition, that it's going to end badly. And it's like the universe once again saying, we told you to listen. Why weren't you listening? That's what I would do.
Thank you, Aaron. Eric?
Couple of quick things to share. One is Kellen, who's on our panel here. I worked with Kellen for a year, and how that came about is I actually reached out to Kellen for my business, and then that turned into not an enrollment conversation, but just simply a Zoom for us to spend time together. And so on the enrollment side, the magic happens when we get one-on-one with people. And so out of that, I was looking for somebody to help me with mindset. And that's something that Kellen's brilliant at. So it just kind of organically unfolded where it made sense for us to work together. With Jay Abraham, when I hired him, he was on my dream board. Like, I want to be coached by this gentleman. And if you know anything about Jay, he's really expensive. So it took me a bit to come up with the money, like a couple years to be able to be in a position to work with him. So one was my intention to find somebody to help me with mindset. The other one was specifically, I wanted to work with Jay. So that's my share.
Thank you, Eric. Brendan.
Yeah, hey, Rich. So I'd say three things. One, look at close friends that are already potentially successful in what you're doing. So whether that's here, whether that's networking, whether that's something you can go to, anyone that you've seen kind of go through that. Because honestly, a lot of times, if you look at someone who's been successful and has walked that path, they're usually more than happy to share what they did and who they connected with. Second piece I'd say is and this was mentioned before, tremendous clarity. Like it helps me when I'm looking for somebody to know, how am I best coached? So I'll give you an example. Like I'm going for like a fitness competition, and I know, like I've gone through stuff before, but I know what I'm looking for. I also know what I'm not looking for. And the same thing from a coaching aspect, whether it's health, wealth, relationships, if it's mindset, knowing how I best touch in or check in with my coach will make all the difference. So if I go to some type of networking meeting, the first thing you're going to want to know is clarity about me. What are you looking for? Do you have a preference on male versus female, years of experience? So, do you want to check in every day? Do you want just group coaching? Do you just need accountability? So I think kind of having that list to say, okay, here's ideally what would help me reach the finish line, I think would be super helpful. And then the third piece, maybe in addition to the coaching, something that's been helpful for me has been accountability partners. So if you've got somebody that's in that same kind of vertical as you, headed in that same direction, being able to check in with them consistently has always been helpful. And then alongside that, we have something that we've called a board of directors. And essentially it's myself and other individuals that are all headed in one direction. And we check in about once a week for an hour. And it's a great way to go through a checklist where you can be open, you can be vulnerable, you can share what you've learned, struggles you're having, wins you've had. So that's also kind of a cool way to get internal coaching. In addition to, if they're getting coached, they can also share really cool feedback with you. So it's kind of like that mastermind, leveraging that power. So hope that helps.
you.
Great. Thank you, Brendan.
Yep.
Kellen.
Some of what I'm thinking has been said, but I'm going to say it anyway. Number one is trust your intuition. You are wired for success. You have the ability to have and create anything you want. The experience you listed that you have is awesome. I'm blown away at what you have done and learned. So trust your intuition is number one. And that might mean sitting down and noting your intuition and conversing with yourself about it and stuff, but trust it. Number two, you're looking at a panel full of coaches. Any one of the ones here, I know many of you, would be thrilled to just talk with you. One of the things that I find is people are scared to do that sort of interviewing process because they feel like the coach is going to push them to do something right now and pay for whatever. If that happens in any way, shape, or form, just be done, because you need to feel supported. You need to feel in that conversation like I can talk to this person. They get what I'm doing and they see it and they're going to tell me the truth and they're going to say it and it's going to feel good mostly. And because there's going to be some things that you got to change if they're doing any good for you at all. So any coach that won't give you a conversation, 2, 3, to explore what you need, that's just like they intuitively don't feel right. So trust your intuition and go interview a bunch, 2 or 3 or 4. And you can start right here. And if it doesn't feel good, ask, who else can I talk to? And anybody that gets weird, if you ask them that question, you don't want to work with them. Because the conversation's coming from a place of, I want you as my client. And it looks like it's not going that way. And oh, crap. So talk to several people. And then it was mentioned, be really clear. You need to be able to feel comfortable. If the potential coach doesn't make you feel comfortable about vomiting your guts out about what you're trying to do, I'm looking for a coach. I need this. I need to get out there. I need to increase my social presence. I want to know how to write better emails. My proposals suck. Whatever the issues, you need to be able to talk about it in plain language, feel heard and supported. And when you get done for the one you're gonna work with, you're going, dang, that was good. I got good stuff. I felt good. Let's do this some more. That's what I meant earlier when I said I don't make proposals. Because if that doesn't happen in the conversation, it's like, what? So that's my 2 bits with theatrics and all.
Those were some good theatrics. So everyone here is pretty much answered the same way I would answer, Richard. It's taking the time. I mean, the more you interview, the better. It really is. And the more you spend time with, and it's not so much an interview per se, even though it kind of is, it's just having a conversation. What Aaron is probably hit it most on the head for me. It's the intuitive part of it. You know, I know when I'm having a conversation with somebody, whether that's going to be a good coach for me or not. Personality wise, not even, I mean, they could be the greatest marketer in the world, the greatest transformation coach in the world, they could be whatever. But if I don't feel that connection, like me and that person, then I know that I'm going to spend my money and it's not going to work out for me, or it's not going to work out as best as it could. Not that it couldn't work out, but it's not going to be the best. So, and anytime I've hired a coach, I've known from within that first few minutes that, hey, I want to hear more about what this person has to say. I mean, shoot, Steve and I worked together for 3 years. 3 years. Within 5 minutes of talking to Steve, I knew this is my coach right here, you know? And so you know that you just have that gut feeling. And trusting, like Erin said in her talk yesterday, you have 3. You have your mind, your heart, and your gut. You have 3 different brains that are talking. And if you feel it in all 3 of those, continue the conversation, maybe go on to the next conversation and work on down that path. So cool.
Thank you all. That was quite enlightening. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. So Teresa, we're going to hold and go back to Vicky. She got her microphone fixed. So Vicky, unmute yourself and let's hear your question.
Yeah, so it's fixed, right? You can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. So as I put in the chat, I would like to speak on stage in front of people, and hopefully what I say will be inspiring. But the issue I have is, what I want to talk about is how a more spiritual understanding of life helped me stop living in the past, deal with trauma, and realize that there was more to my identity than what happened to me, or some of the intrusive thinking that can happen as a result of that. And one of the things I remember saying when I was younger, before I got into this stuff, as I'd say, is what's with all the unicorns, because I'd call it unicorn land. And then all of a sudden I'm learning about energy healing, things around the 3 principles, listening to coaching and listening to Steve. You know, I am that. And I think the words of Rupert Spira occur to me, which really struck and helped me. You know, the happiness that you seek is the happiness that you already are. And I'd really love to talk about that to an audience. I did a podcast a few years ago where I talked about my experiences in the foster care system. I left an email address at the end thinking I'd get loads of people emailing me, and nobody contacted me. So there's some ego in this, right? I wouldn't want everyone to hate it. And not everybody might like what I have to say. So that feels a very, very vulnerable place for me. And also, I don't want to kind of re-identify with that story. I don't want that attached to me as part of my identity either. So I'm sort of, I don't know, I'm kind of struggling with it a bit.
So is your question, how do you get over that struggle to move forward with your, no, I'm again, we heard all this. I'm just.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I guess because it's when you're, I think when you're public speaking, it's so the way it works is because it's from the heart, and there's a certain amount of vulnerability up there.
There is.
And right, do you know the crux of it is, Tony? I'm scared of being vulnerable,
Hmm.
and I I don't know how you not be scared, because I think maybe that's a natural way to feel, but it's stopping me from maybe doing more.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you a question. Is that person that you're trying to avoid identifying as, is that the person you are today?
No. No,
No,
and that's the point.
that's how, well, okay. So that's not the person you are today. The person you are today is who you want people to see, right?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Now that person that you're afraid to identify as, those are the struggles that you came through. That's part of your story, right?
Yeah.
And so in any story, you have the hero, you have the support, you have different pieces of this. And when people, for people to listen, and when people want to listen, they want to hear that vulnerability, because they want to know that they can relate to the struggle. By you speaking about that struggle you had, that even though you're trying to avoid talking about that piece, that's the piece that people are going to relate to. You can say, this is where I was, this is what I overcame, and this is who I am now. And so for that, other people are going to go, wow, I'm there now. And if she can overcome it, she can help me overcome it. I want to listen to what she has to say. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it seems so obvious when you say it, Tony. But yeah, I'm like, well, yeah, of course. That makes perfect sense. Yeah.
I mean, I apologize. It doesn't really address the fear aspect of it, but it's more about the part. Don't avoid that. What I'm getting at is, don't avoid that piece of your story. Use that piece of your story to help gain the confidence of other people.
Yeah, because I don't want to be, because I felt like a victim for a very long time, that kind of mindset, and I just don't. Yeah, I'm scared of doing that again. But yeah, what you said makes sense, and I think what helps, especially on this panel, is being able to speak those things out loud and not just have them in your head. So thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kellen?
Today, you are not that broken person, right?
Yeah.
Today, you are the person who used to be that broken person. So, okay, I'm an ex-drug addict. I was married and divorced 3 times. The list of my battlefield sins is from heck to breakfast. Okay. You and I talk about that however I need to, in whatever circumstance makes sense, in order to serve who I'm talking to. So you are not that broken person. But you can say I was. There's a play, Shakespeare, As You Like It. There were 2 brothers, and one of the brothers the younger brother was really good and successful, and the older brother was always jealous and kept trying to kill his younger brother. And then something happened, and the younger brother rescued the older brother from certain death. And later in the play, there were these ladies that were talking to the older brother. You know, he'd changed now, and he was completely nice and good. And they said, wow, aren't you this person who used to kept trying to kill your brother? Aren't you that? And he ended the conversation with a very short sentence. He said, yes, 'twas I, 'tis not I. Okay. And that's out of the Shakespeare play. Your ability to describe, I used to be that, and I'm now this, that is your journey. I wrote a book called The Story Arc, which is to help people write books and create products. And it's about the journey that you take people on. So it is not a fearful thing. It's your badge of honor that you were and are this. I have done this thing. And that transformation is the thing that attracts people, period. And so that's the truth. The other piece is learning to believe that, because I can jump up and down and say all that, but it doesn't do anything about your heart and your belief. So that is a process. And that is something you can work on, and there are methods and systems to do that. But getting to where it no longer bothers you. I have a thing called the fungus, WITOT, Witot fungus. It kills more people than COVID ever will. And it stands for what I think others think. You know, that fear that you have is only that fungus. It's nothing. It doesn't matter. You were that, you are this, and working on that is learning to love yourself, accept the truth of your own change, and then have that to offer to people so they can follow your example. And I can't in 3 minutes give you the change, reach through and stamp your head healed, but what I can do is assure you that it's very doable, and that can completely end, and you can have the change be your signature strength and your ability to love and serve people.
Oh. Wow, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kellen. Brendan.
Hey, Ms. Vicky. So couple suggestions. Are you familiar with Toastmasters?
Yes, actually, just in the last couple of months, somebody mentioned it, and I haven't taken any steps forward towards that. Yeah.
Well, this is the second time it's being mentioned, so maybe that's a sign.
Yeah. I'm going to write that down as well. Yeah.
So my suggestion is I would do that ASAP. I basically have a buddy that did it for me, and he got down my throat. And I finally did it. And 5 years into it, I learned from some of the most impressive speakers I had ever seen. Here's what I'll say. The first time I ever did it, and I did my icebreaker speech, I was wearing this purple shirt, Vicky. And by the time I was done, it looked like I was in shoulder high water from the sweat and the nerves. And it was, when I say bad, it was bad. And 5 years into it, you start to learn, do this, don't do that. So if you're trying to figure out how do you increase that confidence, how do you stand on stage, how do you leverage your message in certain ways that will impact in some directions and others in others. So I'd say that part's huge. When you share your story, one thing I've learned is that you share your scars, not your wounds. So if there's something that you're going through right now that's mentally messing with your head, a lot of times the best thing to do is just share stuff that you've gone through, that you've learned how to, overcome that hurdle, overcome that challenge. And that's the story that you can help provide in the transformation for your audience. I would listen to phenomenal speakers. So like Les Brown was a huge mentor of mine, so much that I got certified with him. Like anything I could do that had to do with like speaking, training, I want to be in that world because you guys are great at what they do. They do this professionally. There's a book that I would highly recommend that you get. It's called $1 Million Speaker by Joe and Eileen. And it shows you exactly how to be a very, very, very powerful speaker with the methodology that they use. So that was super helpful for me. And then the last piece I would say is always have some sort of call to action at the end. So whatever that's going to be, maybe that's working with you. Maybe that's them taking action on the 3 steps that you shared during your talk. And just remember at the end of the day, it's about them. It's not about you. Somebody is there to hear what you have to say. The second mentally you start thinking, okay, what are they going to think about me? What do they think about my message? You've already lost. Your job is to stand on stage. How can I impact you? Here's the message. Here's how I want to transform you. Who has to hear this? And totally take yourself out of the picture. And it makes life so much easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Brendan. I mean, I'd love to do a TED Talk one day. I'd love to really inspire people and help people in the way I've been inspired. So thank you. Yeah.
Nice. Most welcome.
Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, Brendan. So Eric, and I loved what you put in the chat. You might read that or re-mention that.
Yeah. Vicky, you are extraordinary. And I love what you wrote in the chat there. Is what you want to speak on helping people let go of past trauma?
Yeah. And I think that my main takeaway was when I came into the work of the 3 principles, and it just dawned on me that my identity wasn't attached to my thinking. It just, and that is a huge thing for people who have PTSD,
Yeah. Let me jump in, Vicky, just for time purposes, and I apologize for cutting you off, but I want to share something with you.
Go ahead, yeah.
I want to see if I can help you create a shift right now. So I work with a lot of people that are speakers, and there's a lot of fear around speaking. And even at my level, Vicky, sometimes I get afraid. So there's you or me or any of us on this Zoom operating at our highest frequency, our most loving, our most kind, our most compassionate, our most consistent. That's the highest expression of ourselves, and we all can operate there. But then there's our lowest frequency, right? Fear, being critical of others, judging others. So the question is, which one are we? Are we up here? Are we down here? Are we somewhere in here? And the answer is we are whoever we choose to be. So I want you to consider you at your highest expression of yourself and come up with a touchstone, which is something physical that reminds you of who you are. So at any time you can look at that touchstone, or you can get that touchstone out and step into that highest expression of yourself. And my touchstone is an energy drink called Prime. And we don't have time to get into the story about it, but the bottom line is, anytime I see that energy drink or I touch it or I look at it, it reminds me of who I am. And so I want you, if you want to go out and speak and impact people's lives, we need you operating up here. Okay. And your message is needed. And what I put in the chat is, it's a great book. It's a great course for you to create on helping people deal with past trauma. It's a great group coaching program, and it's a great one-on-one coaching program. And you could literally make millions of dollars with that message because it's so needed in the marketplace. And so I just want you to know, I see extraordinary you, and I just want to encourage you to go for it. And the last thing I'll say is make your dreams bigger than your fear. And fear is something that I continue to deal with, but I make my dreams bigger than my fear. And I'll turn it back over to Tony.
I love that. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you. Before I move on, hey, the guys that are in the attendees, Sabrina, Robert, Greg, because of the way this is set up, if you want to be on the screen with us, I'll try one more time to promote you to panelist. Please hit the accept button, and that'll allow you to come in and be a part of the group with us. Next, Aaron, please.
Okay, of course, I'm in full agreement with everything that has just been said, Vicky. One thing I would suggest is you definitely want to make sure that you have released that experience in order to be able to speak about it without having the emotional charge there. Because, I mean, I'm going to, kind of guess, or I can imagine if I were in your position, you might have the fear of breaking down when you talk about your own experience. Your goal is to help other people go, survive this, what you've gone through, that kind of thing. Your goal is to help people. But sometimes if there's still an emotional charge to our own experience, we're going to break down in tears, kind of thing, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But that can cause fear in us to want to talk about it. So you want to get to a place where you've really released it, and that emotional charge isn't there for you so much that it becomes really draining to talk about it. So you definitely want to get to that place. So doing the release work and the whole bit. So the emotional charge is no longer there. Also remembering, this has come up, Steve and I both talked about this weekend, how the goal of your ego is to keep you safe. Because you mentioned the word ego, so I'm kind of going there. So the goal of our ego is actually to keep us safe. So oftentimes the ego will make things seem scarier than they really are. Right? Your ego is kind of going, oh, this is going to be, you can't get up on stage. People are going to think this, think that. And that's our ego talking, so that you don't get up on stage, so that you don't have your feelings hurt if things don't go well and you're judged and all that kind of thing. So there, gets to a point in time where once you realize that about the ego, that it's actually exaggerating the fear, it allows you to kind of look at it differently and change your perspective. So there's a couple of things. Also, I think this, though. Your experience is not who you are. That's not your identity, right? That was just an experience that you went through. Like, I kind of want to talk about Kellen here. When he told everyone he used to be a drug addict, did anyone go, oh my God? No, I'm going to bet not one single person here made that kind of judgment. In fact, everyone probably went, wow, good for you, dude, for overcoming that. That's actually the reaction people usually have when we tell our story. We assume there's going to be this negative judgment, and it's actually usually the opposite kind of judgment. Like, good for you. Wow, you rock. So, our egos make everything so scary when it's usually quite the opposite. So I hope that helps.
It does, Erin. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
So welcome.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you. Lindsay.
My pleasure.
So I'm in firm agreement with what everyone has said here. And I think just one small thing that's kind of tied to what Brendan said, which was, Toastmasters and these areas where you can practice and you can grow in this skill. Tying it into what Kellen said as well, as we get in our own heads and we're worrying about what everyone else is thinking, what I like to tell myself is, if I'm called to speak here in this moment on this Facebook Live, stage, podcast, wherever it is that I'm speaking, it's because there is someone out there who needed to hear this message today. And instead of thinking about all these people and what are they thinking about me, I'm focused on, I was meant to be sharing this with someone because there's somebody here today that needed to hear this message. And then I would get myself environments where I could practice what I wanted to do. One podcast is not enough, right? There's so many podcasts out there, they're endless, that you could be sharing your story, and you can be doing that in your own videos on Facebook Live or wherever it is that you want to. And I would use those as data points, right? It's a data point. It's not a judgment on yourself. It's a data point of, oh, that went really well today. I really felt connected when I shared it this way. And use that to build through that confidence like anything else. And then what all the other people said, I just don't want to repeat all of that. So.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. Steve.
All right. Hi, Vicky.
Hey, Steve.
So there's a few things here. I'm probably going to mirror some of what everybody's already said. So I might say it a different way. When we're walking into something, there's an agenda or a commitment that we have walking in. And the commitment is, in your case, to have a high value impact, to helps people walk from victim to victor and so forth. I love the words that you were using. Now, there's also this hidden commitment in there, the hidden agenda. And I think Erin and actually Lindsay both were touching upon this, is there's a hidden agenda in it. Sometimes the agenda is to stay safe. And I had somebody say something to me back in 2014. They said that I had put my self-image above impacting the world. And that was a very uncomfortable thing for me to hear. Lots of tears on that one. And what I had done was I put myself in front of everybody else. So my hidden agenda was to keep myself safe. And I love that Erin was talking about your ego. There's also another hidden agenda in there that I want people to say good things about me. I want the attaboys or the attagirls. And when that's hidden inside of it, when we don't get it, we don't realize the heartache that we feel and where it's coming from. So we internalize it like it's our fault. There's something wrong. I'm not good enough or smart enough or whatever the enough that we decide to throw into the pile. And then what we do is we say, well, I need to be better. So I need to read these 4,000 books first before I bring myself back out again. Or I need to do this before I do this. And what in all reality, what we're looking at here is we created a story that is based upon some kind of past version of ourselves that we still think we are that person. And it was eloquently said, I'm trying to remember, I think it was Erin or Kellen, that we're not that person. It was an experience that we were in the moment, except for we bring that experience forward. And in a moment we start having a conversation around it, And all of a sudden brings it back as though it's happening now. So, so I say that to kind of bring this into a place where it's, what do you want people to relate with you for? Do you want them to relate because you were the victim, or do you want them to relate to you are now a victor? And if you can base your conversation, I'm a Pete Vargas fan. I like the way he does. He's a process person in his talks. I kind of like that. And he was saying 10 to 15% of your talk is your story. The other 60% is the volume of what you did, and the testimonies and who you were able to touch. And then there's the last part of it is now I'm here. Right. So the who I am, your who I am is the who I am that I'm looking at 11:25 a.m. Eastern on September 17th. That's the who I am that I see you are, not the person you used to be. But it helps me relate to you, saying, man, goodness gracious, if you did that, man, my story is nowhere near that. I can totally do exactly what you're talking about. So hopefully that helps. But the last one is, who are you making this about? Are you making it about the people that you're looking to impact, or the person you look at in the mirror?
Oh, it's the people, the people I'm looking to impact. But I do think there is some ego in there, and I think the message I have and what I have learned may not be a message people want or the way they want to learn. So I don't want to assume that what I'm saying is going to change people's lives, but it's changed my life, and maybe that is the ego talking. I don't know.
Thank you, Steve. Dave?
I thank you very much, Vicky. I really appreciate your desires and what you're about here. I love what everyone has said. I cajoled my wife into joining Toastmasters, and she is now a fantastic, if reluctant, public speaker. I put myself in there because I loved it as well, and honed the skills that that loving already had with it. It occurs to me that there's one thing that might make a difference in moving the action forward, and that is the difference between wanting and committing. So the example I have for you is there were 6 frogs that were sitting on a log, and 5 of them decided to jump off. How many frogs are still on the log?
Well, I don't know, because you can decide to do something, but unless you do it, you're going to still be sat there.
Correct. All 6 frogs are still on the log.
Yeah.
Now here's the next part, right? 5 frogs committed to jumping off the log. Now, how many frogs are on the log?
Well, I think there's going to be 1 frog there, Dave.
Well, maybe if they took the action that they committed to, but if they're committed and haven't done it yet, there's still 6 frogs there. So, and then the last one is, how, there's 6 frogs on a log, 5 of them jump off. How many frogs are left? And
right. I see where you're going. Yeah.
And with that, I'd love to thank you, and I appreciate you, and I'd love to turn the rest of my time over to Ankush.
Thank you.
Hello. How's it going, Vicky?
Welcome.
I wasn't on the call when you asked your question, but Dave has very kindly shared your original question with me, so I might have missed some of the answers. But I wanted to point you to something which is kind of 3P basically. You said you had been profoundly impacted by the principles, as have I. And I shared, I don't know if you could see it in the chat, this link, which was a quote from Nathaniel Branden. And Nathaniel Branden has a quote which is, "We must become what we wish to teach." Right? We must become what we wish to teach, which is really powerful. And it's something that Steve Chandler shared with me a few years ago, and it really, really landed with me. Because it was like the opposite message of fake it till you make it. Right? So now I'm grounded in the principles. That was kind of what I was introduced to at the start of my coaching journey. And it's a really profound message. And if we tie it in with what Nathaniel Branden says, which is we must become what we wish to teach, this might be helpful for you. So what I found was when I started out, there were tons of things that I was really nervous, fearful, uncomfortable doing. There were a bunch of things that I was really, really scared of being judged for. And I went out and did them anyway. And a bunch of people said to me, hey, wow, I wish I had your confidence, Kush. You know, you're so confident. I wish I had your confidence. I still remember this one lady messaged me. I don't remember her name or anything. And I said, you got it all wrong. I don't have a ton of confidence. But my understanding of the principles has taken away my excuse for not taking action. If it's really true, if what I'm teaching or sharing with clients is that 100% of our experience is coming to us via thought in the moment, and that's the only place it can come from, right? Which is what you're teaching, which is what leads to these really profound shifts. It's not saying it's got something to do with it, it's saying it's the whole thing. So if 100% of it is that, and then I think about whatever it is, and in this case, it might be giving a motivational speech. Well, if what I'm teaching people is, hey, your experience is coming to you via thought, and you don't need to take your thinking so seriously, well, we've got to walk that ourselves. Now, that doesn't mean it's easy. Right? I want to acknowledge that. For me, I had to face all these fears and demons, and they're all made up, by the way. But I had to walk through them to show myself it was made up. It wasn't an intellectual exercise. So I go out, I put myself out there. I remember when I did my first event, a group event, and I kind of went public as a coach. And it was this event for women to meet Mr. Right. And I thought I had a good idea. Oh, stuff I'm learning can really help people in dating and relationships. And I was petrified of being, ridiculed or judged or whatever. And it happened. One of my cousins wrote a comment under my very professional post saying, hey, Kush, is this just a way for you to meet women? Ha, 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 ha. And my heart sank and I was like, oh my God, what do I do? Do I delete the comment? What if people have seen it? This is the worst thing that I wanted to happen. And I came back to the principles. Whatever I'm feeling right now is not coming from her comment. And it settled me down. And when it settled me down, I realized I can actually respond. This is a beautiful opportunity. So I said, hey, thank you for your comment. I can see how it might look like that. But let me tell you what I've been doing over the last few years, which is going on this rabbit hole of a journey with some of the top psychologists in the world and really learning about how our mind works. And I see it can really apply to dating and relationships, which I think, by the way, there's huge pressure on people from my community to get married and settle down. And it's actually getting in the way, and misunderstandings getting in the way of them meeting someone. And so I just responded. Didn't make it easy. Didn't make it, oh, it's comfortable. But it took my understanding of the principles took the excuse away. So I just wanted to share that with you as a kind of another piece, that if you're coming from this place and sharing this message, keep walking the path. Keep walking the path. Keep showing yourself how reality is created. That's going to add strength to your message, not because you're perfect, but because if what you're sharing is true, then of course you're not going to hold back. Of course you're going to keep moving forward. And that's going to be a really powerful message for people that they will connect to, because it's really human to have the thinking that we have, can't change it. And yet we can choose to buy into it or not. Is that helpful?
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, that's yeah, it really speaks to the soul, I think. That's how it feels for me. Thank you.
Thank you,
You're welcome.
Ankush. Thank you, Vicky. So we're slated for a break right now. Do you guys want to just keep on going and power through it, or do people need a quick break? I'm getting no responses, so I'm guessing we just
Well, if you don't take a break, I'm going to go to the bathroom anyway. If you do take a break, I will go to the bathroom. So either way, your call.
Okay, so why don't we do this? Let's take a 10-minute break because I got to use the bathroom too. So let's take a 10-minute break. Everyone can stay on the screen, leave it here. We can just come right back. Be back. It's 11:35 a.m. Eastern time. Come back at 11:45 and we'll continue on. Keep your hands up, Teresa and Cassandra. We'll hit you up first as soon as we get back. All right. We're back. Thank you, everybody, for the quick break and making it back on time. Teresa, we are on you. Thank you for patiently waiting with your hand up, your virtual hand up for this long. We're ready for your question.
No problem. First of all, I want to thank Kim Ward for inviting me to this summit, and Tony for your wonderful dedication and time spent on this summit, and Dave for your wonderful insights as an MC, and for all the wonderful speakers this weekend. I learned so much. And Tony, this panel, I've never seen anything done like this at a summit, and it's been wonderful to have the questions and the insights. I have a lot of credentials behind my name because I felt that was the only way people would listen to me. I'm a registered nurse. I'm a certified therapist, hypnotherapist, regression therapist, NLP, EFT for weight loss, blah, 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 blah. And my thought was I was learning it to help others. Then I realized recently that all the tools I have, I can work for on myself. I am worthy of my own self-care and self transformation. One thing that I wanted to ask was, Ankush, I hope I spelled it right. I said it right. Could you put your link in under everyone? Because I can't get it to open. And my question is, I'm a very strong empath. And my older brother was born crippled, and we were 11 months apart, and he died a year and a half ago after living in pain for so many years. And I realized that each day after he died, that I was releasing more and more of what I had taken on from him. And even though I thought I hadn't, I had. And that was such an insight for me. And so my question is, I know several of you are empaths. How do you work with a client and as an empath? Oh, also, one of my coaches told me that when she starts to speak on a webinar or a Facebook Live or whatever, she asked God to give her the words that the people need to hear that day. So if you could all share how you deal with being an empath and working with different clientele. Please.
Dave, you get the honors this time.
Beautiful. Thank you. It is a hell of a thing, Teresa, to take on the pain of those around us. I remember when I was a kid, I couldn't turn it off and it hurt like crazy. And eventually I was able to turn it off. Took something pretty drastic, but was able to then turn it back on and modulate it, meaning control how much I was taking on at any one time. With clients in particular, it is a superpower because you can tell you have the possibility of really not just thinking and considering conceptually what they're experiencing, but you have the opportunity to feel as they're feeling and to work with them through their things without taking it on. You're simply observing as opposed to accepting all the pressure. It's not our responsibility to take on our shoulders their burdens, right? So there is some beautiful things that come along that have helped me with that. The first one is to recognize that there's nothing that I could do that would make me unworthy of the love of God. And if God doesn't work for you, the universe, you know, the higher self, whatever you want to say, I'm not attached to that for anyone but myself. The second thing is that there's nothing I could do that would make me unworthy of my love to myself. And then the third one is the possibility that I extend to everyone, the possibility that there is nothing that anyone could do that would make them unworthy of my love. And Kellen's heard me share this before. A lot of people here may have heard me share this before, but the power of this is that it changes the context from from being something where I just have to serve and take on and deal with what other people are dealing with, and recognize that I am worthy of investing in releasing my own traumas. I am worthy of using EFT and things, that all the tools that you have, and I'm NLP certified, me too. EFT have taught that stuff. I love it. Psych-K, oh yeah. I've got tons of modalities. I don't use them all the time because they're not called for all the time. And there is power in using them for myself, and there's power in my having my coach to help me get through the things that I can't see. So that is kind of where I come from there. The second part of your question, how do I make sure that I'm sharing what I'm sharing? Well, I'll share with you what I do. The beingness that I come from is the beingness of being loving. That last possibility. There's no one that is unworthy of my love. And what that turns into is a doing of, like when I came on this into this panel, I looked at the faces of everybody whose picture was on, and I just said, I love you, 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 I love you. And coming from love is the best way that I know to speak the words that love would speak. And you may have read that God is love. I take that on. Guess what else? There's one other thing that I say, which is I am made of love.
Oh, wow.
And with that, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave. Steve.
Man, I was like calling somebody else. Oh, Dave, man. Wow. Rose really, I don't know who, Lindsay, yeah, powerful message there. Hi, Teresa.
Hi, Steve.
I'm so grateful to be here with you right now. You are hitting me in the heartstrings. I was, we have recently started going to a lot of Christian concerts. We have an arena just attracts them down here in Southwest Florida, and we're sitting there in the front. We usually get some pretty good seats. We know most of the people that are promoting the venues, and we're sitting in the front when one concert, and our now 13-year-old's next to me, and all of a sudden I look over and he is, wow, just crying, bawling, and I go, "How you doing, buddy?" He's like, "There's so much heaviness coming from the back." Now you have to imagine we're and there's thousands of people behind us. And I said, "What do you mean by heaviness?" And he said, "It just feels like sadness." And I said, "Okay, so what if you saw it as people releasing their burdens and giving it all away?" And he went, "Ooh." And then his tears continued to tear, but they were different. He could feel it was instead of sadness, he could feel gratitude, and it completely shifted his mind. So the reason I tell that story is also empath, is that as an empath, we also have to take into consideration that it's our experience that we're dealing with in the moment and the feelings we're feeling from other people. And if we can grasp onto that, we can realize that we're coming from, I call it coming from a place of something. So we're coming from our own experiences, our rights, wrongs, true, falses. And even if we don't want to admit it out loud, we are really good at judging people, our own judgments and all that kind of stuff. It starts infiltrating the conversation. And then we go from, how can I help this person? I'm just gonna be honest here. Not necessarily always for them. That we have the need to help that person, and the intention is not 100% on that person there. So in order to come from a place of nothing is just to simply recognize what's happening, recognize your feelings, your emotions, and allow them to be there, and it's okay. Because one of the things that I digged about what Vicky was talking about was she wants to be there with her people, right? So we can pull that out of ourselves and allow it to really be sensitive to what they're dealing with. So if somebody's coming to me and they're like, "I'm really dealing with this stuff," and I go, "Just because you're dealing with your stories," and they're like, "What?" And now we're here. But your ability is a superpower of being an empath. It is something to really, man, that is something that's really challenging if if you haven't, you're not aware of what kind of superpower that is. So if you can pull yourself out of the something that you're creating, come from a place of nothing, that connection will be something that will last absolutely forever.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve. So, so our friend Ankush, she has to leave soon, so we're going to have him go next. Ankush, please jump in.
Unmute myself. So I'm going to share something which may be controversial, but I'm going to go with this, and feel free to ignore everything that I say and trust your own wisdom. But as I said earlier, I've been trained in something called the 3 principles. It's not the only thing I've been trained in, but it's the foundation of the work that I do. And I can't go in and teach the whole principles in a 5-10 minute kind of answer. But what if you didn't have to take on anything energetically from a client and still don't lose empathy? Because I want you to consider that, because I not only believe it's possible, I've experienced it, and I have also learned from people who have worked with, I mean, some are just the most just incredible stories. So I'll give you one, right? So we'll look at PTSD, right? Now, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, but let's look at PTSD. There is an incredible video, and I'll actually put it into the link when I've finished answering this question, which is an interview with the mother of a woman and her psychiatrist. And I often share this with people. And basically the daughter who wasn't there, the daughter was abducted by someone she went to high school with. She was brutally raped, and she was almost killed, right? The guy tried to kill her, from someone she went to high school with. Beautiful girl. And it was national news in America, and so it becomes national news for a short time, and then she's found, and then it goes off the news, but we're left with a person there. And this young girl had been kind of in and out of hospital, gone to every single doctor. Long story short, her life was a mess. And anyone that saw her would understand why. Like, man, you've been through a really traumatic event. Like, just, of course. And then she met this guy, Dr. Bill Pettit. And one doctor had said to her, your trauma is so severe, I don't think you're ever going to be cured. Like, it's such an extreme trauma. Like, I don't know if you can really ever 100% recover from this, which obviously was really disheartening for her. Then she meets Dr. Bill Pettit, and Bill goes, you're sitting in something along the lines of, you're sitting in perfect mental health. And she goes, how can you say that? You don't know my story. Now, he just kind of chance meeting with her in the hospital. And he goes, I don't need to know your story. I know that everyone is sitting in the middle of perfect mental health. So I'll kind of condense her story. She goes to one of his programs. She spends some time with him, and she gets healed. She gets her life back on track. She kind of fully recovers, if you like to say. And then 6 months later, she dies in a car crash.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's a tragic story. Now, her mother is on this interview with Dr. Pettit. It's such a powerful interview. And she's on there, and she's got the photo of her daughter, and like, you're listening to it, like, my God, like, what a tragic story. And she goes, I'm here to thank Dr. Pettit, because my daughter was destined to die in that car crash. But I'm so grateful to him that I got my daughter back for 6 months before she passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And that's unusual. That's unusual for a mother to say that, having her daughter go through that. And it's obviously, part of the thing came to her. Now, here's the other thing that she said. She said her daughter, after she went through all of this stuff, when she found her mental health, when she found her inner wisdom, when she got through the healing process through this work with Dr. Pettit, which is based on the 3 principles, she actually said this. She goes, if what I had to go through if the price to pay to get what I have now was what happened to me, that was a small price to pay. Right? This is unusual, people. This is unusual. We don't live in a world where people are talking about not only is the stuff we've gone through stuff we can recover from, we can go way beyond that. And for the patient, for the client to turn around and say, that's a small price to pay, that's unusual. Right? So I really encourage you to watch that video. Like I said, I'm gonna send a link because it's such a powerful video and it really challenges so many of the beliefs we have around what happens to us in trauma. Now, like I said, I'm not a therapist, I'm a coach. And over the years, I've had people come to me. They don't come to me for this, but through our work, I get to know them really well. I had a client who was an older client, and he had been sexually abused by his mother. He was told by the top psychologist therapists in the country he lived in that this is the most severe case of sexual abuse we have ever encountered in our lives. And this guy had struggled with it for decades, for years and years and years. And I was like, well, I'm not a therapist. I'm not qualified to kind of give you therapy, but he was in a program that I was delivering. And here's what I knew. And this is where I spoke from. It's not a teaching, but where I spoke from was, I spoke from a place that he's completely mentally healthy. I spoke from the opposite place that this doctor said. I don't take on my client's trauma because I know that what happened to them, whilst it could have been tragic, whilst I would not wish it on my worst enemy, is not causing their traumatic state right now that can only come via their thinking. That sounds unempathetic. It's not. And I say to people, if I believe what happened to you is causing you to feel bad, and I'm just going to use that as a kind of catch-all, then there's nothing you can do. Now I'm condemning you based on what happened to you, and we're giving all the power to the circumstance or the person, the perpetrator, or the circumstances of what occurred to you. But if I come from a place, and I've seen this happen, again, it's not unempathetic, that what happened. It's, you know, I don't want to say, oh yeah, it's great, whatever, but you know, this guy was sexually abused. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. And what I know is that this guy's mother had passed away. I said, I don't believe she has the power from the grave to make you feel anything. And a misunderstanding of how the mind works is what is giving her that power. So when I come from this place of he's completely whole and complete and mentally well, and I'm not buying into the trauma that we need to now heal, it's a different way of being, it's a different place to come from. He was fixed. There was nothing, I don't believe there was anything broken. He healed from that. He healed from decades of trauma, like this. And I'm not a therapist. And I've had other clients, I've had several clients. Unfortunately, it's more common than we realize. I've had several clients that had suffered sexual abuse, one from his father, one from his uncle, just so many people, and other kinds of trauma. And what I have seen over and over again, I would say to anyone that suffers that, go and speak to a three principles based psychiatrist or psychologist, Dr. Bill Pettit, Dr. Keith Blevins, Dr. Mark Howard, some of my mentors. I would always point them in that direction. And when I've had interactions with people who are coming to me for something else, and we just end up talking about stuff, they recover really quick, and they see something that they never saw possible for them. And it's because of where I'm coming from. And so I don't ever have to worry about taking on their trauma because I'm not buying into the trauma in the first place. And that doesn't mean that I'm not empathetic. I love my clients. I love people. I'm so happy when they recover from this. I care about them. I really care about them. And you know, if people want to check this out, like I said, I'm not a therapist, go and check out some of these people and look at the case studies. I had a therapist once say to me, because I'd gone through some stuff as a kid, it wasn't sexual abuse, but I'd gone through something, and this therapist said to me, you know, this is about 3 years ago, you've suffered trauma. and you need to go through this and you need to heal the trauma and whatever else. And it made things worse for me.
Oh.
Right. And she's not a bad person. She was doing it with the best that she could. She was trying to help me, and it made things worse. And I got in my head about things, and I started really digging things up from the past. When I went back to my 3 principles mentor, Dr. Keith Blevins, and I talked it through with him, that just released it in one session because he helped me see I was never a victim. That's not to say bad things didn't happen. I was never a victim. And I got to see the truth of that. And so you know what? I'll take my current mental state over the state of being a victim and suffering trauma and needing to release it. And also that same therapist, I worked with her for 5 sessions. She said to me, she had never seen a client ever have breakthroughs and transformations as quick as I did. And I'm not saying that because I'm so cool. It's because of my understanding of the 3 principles. That's what did it. So I would strongly recommend you go out and look into this work. I'm happy to recommend some people for you to look at, but this is just a game changer. And so I'm really want to strongly suggest that.
Thank you for being on here at this time. That was so profound and really reached my heart. That was awesome. And if you could recommend some people to look at, I'd appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ankush. Thank you. Lindsay, are you ready to attack this one?
Pass. No. So that was incredible. And I think all I really want to add to that is when I first started my career out of college, my undergraduate degree is in social work, and I worked with families that had children that were suffering from mental illness, a wide variety, or developmental disorders. And I took on all of it. Like I took on all of it, and I had no understanding at 21 years old. I didn't know how not to take it on. And I quickly left that field. I went on to work in a corporate role for many years because I didn't know how to shut it off. And much like Dave said, I didn't know how to shut it off. And it was very painful for me. And I think there was a little bit of that when I got into coaching. I was very afraid that I was going to be that same person that I had been at 21. And I remember one of my coaches saying, because I didn't cry a lot, and I was releasing emotion during one of our coaching sessions, and I was crying, and I felt really embarrassed about it. And I was afraid to see my clients do that as well. And he said to me, there's nothing wrong with what's happening right now. This is just a release of your emotion. And it was like that flipped a switch for me, because then I realized that if it happens during my sessions, it's not my job to take on that release of the emotion, that I get to just serve them and hold that space for that person there to release that. And that might be exactly what they needed in that moment to move on and have their transformation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. Thank you. Aaron?
Beautiful stuff, guys. 100% agree. I want to kind of tag on to what Ankush was talking about. If we believe we are creators of our own reality, right, which is essentially what Ankush was saying, if we accept that to be the truth, if you really believe that, then it allows you as a coach to somewhat disassociate from someone's story and not take it on. When I first started coaching, I would book an hour in between clients so that I could go out in the woods and decompress from their emotional state. Because we can take it on, right? I'm now feeling exactly what they're feeling. And I knew I could not be an effective coach if I did so. So just like, firemen and all these people who see some terrible stuff, they have ways of coping with the stress. They actually make jokes about stuff. Now, to some of us who don't have that experience or aren't in that field, it might sound weird that they have like weird jokes about things that they see, but it's their way of disassociating so that they're not taking it on. But I agree with Ankush on this one. I mean, if we are creators of our own reality, you can't play victim and creator at the same time. Right? Like those two principles butt heads. So if you believe your client is a creator of their own reality, it allows you to disassociate and be more effective as a coach. One of the things I teach all my clients and all of that is look for the reason. Again, Ankush was going in this direction. Look for the reason you went through an experience. You created it for a reason. You were meant to learn from it. And if you look at everything through this kind of filter, why did I go through that? Why I do this for everything that happens in my life, even something minor, like, I don't know, meeting someone in the grocery store lineup and having a conversation. Everything that happens, I look for the reason why I co-created that to happen.
Oh, wow.
So I learn from every single experience. If it's bad, a bad experience I've gone through, like I was attacked when I was living in France and I was maced and sexually assaulted and the whole bit. Now, I decided I wasn't going to be a victim from that. I kind of take a step back and go, okay, this experience does not define me. And why did I co-create this to happen? What am I meant to learn from this? What can I get from this to make me better, stronger, all of the things? So it's a whole different way of looking at life. And when you can look at life this way, I mean, it's a whole different way of being. The gift of being able to disassociate makes you a more effective coach. I hope that helps, Teresa.
That does.
I love you,
Thank
darling.
Love you too.
Thank you so much, Erin. Thank you. Eric, you're up.
I want to use my time to not address the question, but I want to acknowledge you, Tony, for how you stepped up and put this event together for all of us. And I wanted to share an insight of something that I'm learning from you that maybe will help others on the call as well. And we're all here. Some of us are here as a participant, and it takes a certain amount of self-love or confidence to be here as a participant, to believe in yourself enough to know, hey, if I come to this conference, this is going to help me. And then there's another group of us that are here as speakers, and we had to love ourselves enough or be confident enough to feel that we were worthy of being here as speakers. And then, Tony, there's you, and you're the leader of this event. And it takes a lot of confidence to put together an industry conference, and for you to see yourself as leaders. And what I'm experiencing right now, and it's like inspiring me to be like, where can I be? What I was talking about earlier about highest expression of ourselves versus our like lowest frequency. And to me, you putting on this event and creating this is you operating at your highest expression of yourself. And I just think about where can I do that? You know, where can I show up the way, Tony, you've shown up for all of us in creating this extraordinary conference. So I wanted to acknowledge you, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. I accept that acknowledgement big time.
Totally agree.
Thank you. Brendan, you would like to attack this one?
Sure. Hey, Mr. Teresa, how you doing?
Hi.
So I probably said I'll keep it short and sweet. The biggest struggle that I tend to find that coaches have is because there's usually two things specifically: unmet expectations and unclear communication. And I think regardless of whatever client you're working with, whether they're super empathetic or not, being very clear about how you want to coach, how you want to support them. What does that even mean to them in their own language? Because a lot of times, like, we'll hop in with a client, they may say one word, they associate a completely different meaning with what that means to us. And if we don't have that correct communication and we don't set the expectation, and if they act in a certain way, if we don't address that to say, hey, next time when something like this happens, here's how I would like to move forward with it. Are we in agreement with that? If you can do that and get on the same page with them, it makes life so much easier. And where I tend to find that things blow up is if you haven't had that dialogue, if there wasn't that proper expectation up front, if you didn't talk about how you're going to talk about things, challenges tend to arise. So hopefully that helps as you're working with your clients.
Thank you, Brandon.
Welcome.
Great. Kellen.
Two pieces. One is it cannot be otherwise than that we create our experience. So it's what Chris was talking about. You have to. It has to be that. Everything that comes into your brain and your heart and everything comes in through your senses, and it all goes through your brain stuff and your pile of emotional stuff and samskaras. You're talking about whoever, if this whole, you create your own experience, period. Now, if someone else, you can feel very empathetic. Like if someone tells me a story of, I'll tell you what, I didn't tell you much of my battleground story, but it's a flippin' mess. Okay. And when I have a podcast and I have 800 something episodes, and I love telling transformation stories and getting people and guests and stuff on there. And I'll just throw this out there. If anybody wants to talk about being on the show, if you've got a story, get a hold of me. But anyway, so I had an interview with this one lady and I had a meltdown. She had a story that just blew my mind. And that's pretty flippin' hard to do. Okay. But here's the thing. I could be totally empathetic and love her to pieces with what she had gone through, the physical activities, and she was creating her own experience out of it. One way, during the arc of the story, and then the powerful responses that she had now created. And I could do all of that and being completely empathetic with her and weeping with her and everything else. And it didn't have anything to do with my emotional state. Because I create my emotional state. And my emotional state was love. I love that woman. And I love the fact that somebody, whoever it was, said, Dave, I love you, I love you, I love you. I do that. Part of my daily ritual that I repeat every day is I love you. And the you is the generic person. I mean, I love you without hesitation. I listen to you fully and without expectation and some other stuff. All right. So you don't have to create difficulty for yourself, no matter what anybody tells you. That's just a truth. And we may need to practice that skill. Okay. And so that's one piece. And the other piece is, I'm loving what Brandon said about, if you've worked with Steve Chandler, he does this thing. You have expectations versus agreements. And the agreements, I have a business, 4-partner business. It's a big, successful business, import business, does all this stuff. And I'm working with 2 of the partners individually, but I'm not working with the business as a whole. And I want to, because this expectations versus agreements thing is getting in the way all the time of how they're communicating. And so sometimes coaches and sometimes as a client, there's this fear about bringing things up and talking to them, talking about them, difficult questions and squirmy things. If I offer something to all of us, it is our willingness to get completely clear and say just what Brendan said. Are we agreed? What is your understanding? Are we agreed? So we'll do this, we'll do that. And creating those agreements, especially if you've got a client who's got lots of difficult things to talk about, this is how we'll do it. And I'll respond this way. And just to get those agreements in place, whether it's about the topics or about the structure of your coaching agreement. So agreements are really powerful, both in navigating difficult conversations and in keeping your coaching business structurally sound. So that's part two. Part one is the most important, which is you can be empathetic and have it affect your emotional state and stability 0.
Mhm. What's the name of your podcast?
Your Ultimate Life.
Okay.
And it's how to create a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy by discovering, developing, and serving with your gifts. And the story of how it started is funny and not a time for right now. It's hysterical how it started. And we just recorded episode 803, and I don't ever intend on quitting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kellen. And by the way, I love that story about how it got started. Kellen, I also love that you pulled out the expectations versus agreements from Steve Chandler, because I still first heard about that from Steve Krivda. And then since being a part of Steve Chandler's work, have since downloaded it again since, and I listen to it regularly. And I actually issue it to every single new client before our first session, that they listen to the expectations versus agreements audio. So that's one. I got to piggyback on Kellen on that one. The other one that most people have talked about is the fact that our thoughts create our reality. Our thoughts and how we speak into the world creates our reality too. So, I mean, the positive thoughts are one thing, but speaking positive is another. And the other part that I spoke about a little bit yesterday is the acceptance and forgiveness. And so sometimes there are moments where somebody's not really willing to forgive yet. However, it's still an opportunity for them to accept this is what has happened in my past. Now, you want to work towards the forgiveness, of course. However, the first step would be to accept this is what happened. You can't go, none of us have a time machine. We can't go back and change what happened. There's no way to do that. And so there's no reason for us to hang on to that now and make that our being. It's like what we talked about with Vicky earlier. That is part of your story. That's where you came from. Those are the struggles you overcame, but that is not who you are today. And so we can help in the point of being empathetic. We can help our clients understand that is not the person they are today. That's an instance in time they went through, and they can accept that is an instance in time they went through. But today is not that time. Today is a different person. They are who they are today.
Could you share the link to that video on the expectations versus and agreements?
It's actually a download. I'll have to see if I can find it, but I'll get it over to you. I'll get it over to you one way or another.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, everybody. Great insights. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Teresa. All right. Cassandra, thank you for being patient.
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So there's a couple people that I know on here and the rest I don't. And so a little background, I've been a stay-at-home mom for 28 years, have 7 children and married to Scott, and 6 grandkids now. And it's kind of just been my dream, and I've been living my dream. And 5 of them are married now, and we just have a couple teenagers left. And my husband, about a year ago, just kind of threw it out there and just said, "Hey, Cass, if you want to create something, I'd love to help you create it if it calls to you." And I have a lot of stories around who I could be and who I am. And one of them was that there's not enough room in our home for 2 successful business owners. And I felt safe over here doing my mom thing. So, but I thought I would try it and don't do too much, just so I don't embarrass myself too much when it, fell on my face. So, I started something that I really had no passion around, which was a car rental business. And I asked Scott to buy me some really cool cars, and he made it happen. And what I found on my very first rental was that I have a deep, deep passion for connection with other powerful humans. And I found it immediately in Kevin Nichols, which was my very first renter, and his family. And I started with one vehicle, and now I have 10 luxury and high performance vehicles that are all new. And within a couple months, I had a spy come to my home and wanted to know what the heck was going on over here in Gilbert, Arizona, and how some things were occurring. And I was wondering if I got in trouble or something. And he's like, yeah, no, there's just a lot of call-ins to Turo, to headquarters, about this person that you are. And then News Channel came and did a story on me, and it just created this incredible created something in me that I had literally no idea. So here I am, extremely passionate about what I do. And the cars are the bait and they're the cherry on the top. But what is the middle and the meat is literally me and my clients. And what it's created is that my clients don't rent from anybody else ever when they come back to Phoenix, or the ones that live here. And so with that, I also have this whole other thought, and sitting with Ankush and a few others, I was going in one direction, but I had this huge like awakening, and I think I shared it in Facebook. Something came up really big for me in this, and I'm asked constantly by people, by my clients, I've been dying to do this. I want a lot of really cool cars, and this just seems like a really great way to do it so that I could still drive these cars and make money, or have them pay for my payments. And I get taken to breakfast by clients and asking for just if I'll give them all of my tips, because they've never ever experienced this level of commitment by another Turo host. And it hit me as I was listening to Austin and Brendan about the 5-day funnel challenge. And this is what I do. Like I sit on my driveway for hours sometimes, or at breakfast, and people just begging for help of how they could create what I've created in this last 12 months. And I'm curious to see, how does that look? Because for me, it's just all about the connection and the being with my clients, that I guess I haven't seen anything further. How does that look? So the question is I don't believe Austin is on here. So Brendan, is this something that you see that through that 5-day funnel challenge, that it's something that I could add? Also with, I know her last name is Ward, was it Kim Ward? With the Pinterest, like, I guess because I'm just so focused in on just meeting my clients, and that I'm not seeing all this other stuff, and just a really big awakening for me. And how does that look for them, for me? In creating a space where I could teach them who am I being as a host for my guests, and creating this experience with my clients that has them coming back to me. That's what I teach to those people that ask me to meet with them.
Okay, so make sure so the question is, how do I teach others to do what you've done, and as far as having that connection with your clients and the Turo business?
So I already do that.
Yeah, okay.
I'm wondering, how does it go further than that? Like, would a 5-day funnel challenge work? Would a Pinterest? How does that look? Because for me, the business side of it, it's difficult for me to see all that stuff, but it hit me in those moments when I was listening to Brendan and Austin.
Okay, so we'll go through the list of speakers here. So I guess the question I have for you is, what is your vision? What do you want out of that? What do you see for that business, or for that helping people?
So teaching others. What I do right now is that I am with my clients in helping them create another business the same as mine. Of why is it different for you, Cassandra? Why are your reviews this and everyone else that, you know, is this? Why am I being asked to go speak at a Turo conference when I have 300 rentals instead of 70,000 rentals from somebody else? It's because of who I'm being with them. And this is what I'm doing already. But how does that look like at a bigger picture instead of just the single clients that are showing it? Can I make could it be like this big webinar, you know, of teaching other Turo hosts? What does that look like for, you know, as a bigger, grander scale, as I'm still being with my clients, but also on the side, creating bigger stuff for the extra mile company that I have.
So what you see is you see yourself helping more people being like you and learning the being that you're being with your clients and with their Turo business or their close or similar business. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So to expand your reach, to do that, yes, I mean, I'll let Brendan speak about the 5-day challenge, but yes, doing some webinars, doing some videos, doing some sort of digital trainings are going to help you expand that reach. Now, to create that outreach is gonna take some of the folks that you already know, reaching out to the people they know, kind of like we did with this event here, or possibly running some ads. But to help teach more people at once versus a one-on-one, it could take something like that, either a group setting or a larger scale, much like an event like we did here. Does that help answer your question a little bit, or get you in the right area, the right path?
Yes, and I do see that as the possibility. Where do I go now? Because like I said, I've never even heard of the funnel, the 5-day funnel challenge. Like, to me, that's the business side of it all that I'm like, yeah, I just want to get out on the driveway, you know. But I see it much bigger, much grander.
Yeah. Okay. So that's ultimately, that's going to be a decision. We all have our choices. It's going to be, where do you want to direct that effort? Because it's going to be, when you make that decision, you're going to want to focus towards that one direction. You can expand to other directions like the Pinterest or the challenge or the virtual summit, but start with one. Whichever one speaks to you. You've already said that you are being, and you're pouring your soul to your clients, and that's how it's become so successful and why they only rent from you. So it's the same sort of thing. And like we talked about finding a coach earlier, whatever speaks to you, go with that path, or at least do more research into that path. Okay. Great. Kellen.
So I love what you're saying, and I love that it was leaking out of your eyes. Your love for what you're doing is leaking out of your eyes. So look, if you're going, what you have to teach isn't about rentals or anything else. What you have to teach that people are asking for is, how do you love your clients in the way that makes them behave the way they do? They're reacting to your love. So your Pinterest board or your 5-day challenge, and yes, I use challenges, and Brendan can tell you more all about those. Any of those models will work. That is a business structural outreach. The clarity is, what am I teaching? I'm pretending I'm you. I am teaching how to love people so intensely that they just wouldn't even consider doing business with anybody else in the context of whatever. And so it isn't even limited to car companies. You may feel comfortable doing that first because you did that and you have that and you are that. But what you're teaching's got jack to do with cars. What you're teaching is the heart and a choice in a way of being that makes people feel heard, connected, that you care about their experience, that you're going to do all this stuff that you do that makes the magic. So what you're really teaching is, I am going to help you show how to make your business, the testimony magnet, the preferred offer, the preferred service provider in whatever business you're running. And so getting really clear on what you're teaching is first, and then really clear on initially the communication, who needs that and can use it the most, makes it an easy starting point. So that's why cars might work, because you can also have all the other technical language that has to do with car rentals that wouldn't work if someone had a pool supply store. But the principles of the client behavior and how they feel about you are the same. So yes, you can expand it. Yes, it's actually it would require you to think through what you do, to codify it, to write some principles down, to do some things so that when you present, you're going to talk about, like when you go talk at that conference, you're going to talk about all these things. But if you're going to teach it in a course or help somebody learn it, then you have to get it organized and figure out how you teach it. What do they have to change in themselves? Don't look at clients just as money machines, and, you know, all the principles that you would have to give them. So what are you teaching? How would you organize it? And after you get that done, then the method that you would use, Pinterest boards and webinars and challenges and everything, that's fine. And any of them might work, and you'll figure out by talking to some people which ones work best for you and how you want to present. Do you like making videos? Do you like talking? Like all that's, you know, part of the implementation piece. But the first piece is get really clear on what you're sharing and organize it in a way that you can easily share it in a way that me or all of us or anyone else as a recipient can go, oh yeah, I get it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the first thing I got to do is some surgery on my cold heart. Amen. Hallelujah. And all that jazz.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kellen. Brandon.
Sure. So hi, Cassandra.
Hello.
Here's what I'll say. A challenge is just another fancy form of marketing. Okay. There's a lot of different ways to do it. If you have an offer that converts, if you have an audience that's hungry for it, then it's a very effective way to get a lot of people in a very short period of time, not just the information they need to even see that that's possible, but just massive belief that this can happen. Like some of the conversations we've had today is even believing that, you know, we are worthy to charge a certain amount, that we are worthy to take on certain clients, so on and so forth. And that's the entire intent and premise behind it. So what I would say is, you know, if you're looking for just different ways to market it, 100% that is a very effective way to do that. And if you didn't catch this yesterday, I'll put it back in the chat. So we broke down everything that we do. And if you're, you know, if it's a matter of, is this the right thing? I would say yes, right out of the gate, just based on what I've heard about you. But if you're also asking the tactics, the how, what's the concept? How do I set this up? What makes the most sense? What do I teach on day 1 all the way to day 5? How do I present my offer? We put all that in there. Like that was the perk of you coming in and doing this with Tony, because we just want to give that to you. So here's what I'd say. Go through that if that's something that you're seriously considering about doing. And if you just have general questions or like, hey, you know, how would this apply? Happy to support you and help you out. And there's also so many amazing people here that we also recommend. Great. If you're going to do an event, that's awesome. But the question is, how do you get butts in seats? How do you get more people to hear about you? And that's where webinars will come in, or podcasting will come in, or blogging, or messaging, or even just networking with all the individuals here. So I'd say it's a very collaborative effort. Even, you know, like a Noah and a Tony pointing, you know, having him point you in the right direction and people to connect with prior. But hopefully that helps. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to help you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. Eric.
Hi, Cassandra.
Hello, Eric.
I heard something you shared during your share about, you know, not feeling confident about having 2 successful businesses in your house. Was that an old thought or is that a current thought?
Yeah, I can't even have that thought anymore. It's not, it's a reality. I am just as successful. Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to use the word God. And if any of you don't use that word, just kind of substitute whatever the way you think about it is. But I look at life as if God put a vision in my heart, it's there to be realized. And so what I heard in your share is you have a vision in your heart to express yourself in a different way beyond what you're doing with the cars, and it's there to be realized. And there's different times in my life that I have felt called to do things that maybe didn't fit in with my life, but I felt that I was supposed to do it. Like you and I know each other through the Ultimate Coach Facebook group. And when I chose to take that on, I'm running my own international sales training company. I'm a husband. I'm a father of 4. I'm busy being me. And there wasn't really any time or space in my life to take that on. And I felt called to do it. And so I took it on. And I had no idea I was going to be called to do that. I teach people how to write books. When I started my sales training company, I didn't even have a book. Like, how am I going to teach people how to write books? And now I teach people how to write books. I do public speaking coaching. When I started my training company, there was no vision to do public speaking coaching. And so, I think as all of us evolve and grow as leaders, we are going to be called, just like I think you're being called to serve at a higher level. And the question is, do we answer that tug on our heart? So I just want to encourage you to do it, whether it's a challenge or Pinterest or whatever, like to the last gentleman's point, like there's a variety of ways that we can express ourselves, but you have something special to launch a company and have all these vehicles and have people asking you, tell us your secret sauce after only been doing this for 12 months. That speaks volumes to how extraordinary you are. So I'm looking forward to your course or your book or whatever you do to teach what you're teaching. I would want to learn it as in the role I'm in. I'm not in the car business, but I would be interested to learn your things and how I can apply it to all the things that I'm up to. So I just want to encourage you to just keep doing what you're doing. And it sounds amazing.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Thank you, Eric. Aaron.
Yeah, I don't think there's a whole bunch to say here. I agree of course, with everyone. So your jam is connection and communication.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny when that is our jam, sometimes it's confusing because you might be thinking, well, what do you guys have an issue with? Like, just be with your people, talk, communicate, connect. But that's how you know what your gift is. When something comes so naturally to you that you can't even understand that it's an issue for other people, that's your gift. Connection and communication. So that's kind of what you're, clarity there, no problem. So then it's a marketing question, right? Then it becomes all about marketing. And no matter what kind of coaching or program, you have to become a bit of a marketer as well. So you're clear on what your gift is. So now it's a matter of how do I package that up and take it to the next level? How do I get it out to the people? So that's marketing challenges, that's a whole huge training right there. There's a million ways to market it. So yeah, welcome to the world of marketing as well.
Yes, and that was the nutshell of what I was attempting to ask was, I know what I have. I know who I am, and I know who I am from my clients. And I am very clear that they pay for me, not my vehicles any longer. And that just drives me even further to be who I am. And I know nothing about marketing. And I've been marketing myself without even realizing it, just on my driveway as they come and pick up cars, or when I drop them off at the airport and meet them, or through my messaging. I don't have a clue about the business marketing side of it. And so that's where I was like, does this look like something that would work somewhere else, for larger audiences? So,
well, here's marketing on social media or online for you in a nutshell. Pretty sure pretty much everyone on this summit knows this one is you're building an audience. You're engaging with that audience, right? You're communicating with them, you're providing them with value, all of that. That gives them a reason to follow you. And then you promote to your audience. You promote the webinars, the challenges, the whatever you're going to do. Build an audience, engage with your audience, sell or promote to your audience. That's marketing in a nutshell, online anyway.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Erin.
You go, girl.
Lindsay.
So I love marketing and I kind of geek out on it. And when you started talking about your business, I thought to myself, she's the Disney of car rentals. Like, you totally Disneyfied your business. Like, people love to come to you because of the experience. Like, you can go to any theme park, right? You can go to any water park, but what do people do? They go back to Disney year after year and they bring their grandkids and they love it and they get all the ears. Which reminds me, I'm gonna drop it in the comments for you, a book that I read a few years ago called Systematic Magic, which was written by Vance Morris, and he worked at Disney and was in charge of like making the experience magical for people. And he took that and he applied it to his carpet cleaning business. And people were like you, they wouldn't go to anybody else. They would only call him to come clean the carpets. But what I think it is that you're so intuitively good at what you do that you might go, well, how do I package this up and put it into a product for other people? And so I think this book may give you some of that kind of strategic and tactical, how do I take what I'm so good and intuitively doing and create something that I can hand off to somebody else so that they can take that and implement it and Disneyfy their business as well and make it as magical as Cassandra's business. Because all the other marketing stuff works. I mean, like challenges, Pinterest, right? Email, video, all of that works. But how do you give that gift that you have in something that somebody else can absorb and understand and use in their business is really I think we're the first place to start. And once you have that, you've already got people begging for it. Like the marketing will be very easy. If you've already got people begging you to sit down and do this, like you can do the webinars, you can do the challenge, you're going to have that audience. That will all come. But I think that first step is getting the really figuring out how you're going to package up what you're so good at already, because it's so easy to you.
Yeah.
And they're going, what am I missing? So I'll drop that for you because I think you'll really enjoy that book.
Thank you. Yeah, that's been a struggle with a lot of them that I've shared what I do, and they've went and bought a car. A man, had went and bought a car, and he's like, Sandra, nobody's renting my cars. Like, I'm doing everything. I'm not getting anything like you're getting. And like, I don't know what else to say. This is just my personality, and it's just who I'm being. And then I kind of getting clearer on that. So of really who am I being? Who are you being over there? And I, trying to teach them, don't be Cassandra, be what's authentic in yourself, too. I mean, can't all be like me. I mean, in Turo, I guess, no, but.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. Thank you. And then you're right. No, nobody, there is only one Cassandra.
There really is.
Steve.
Wow. There's been a host of information here. I have a question for you, Cassandra. By the way, hi.
Hi.
It's good to see you.
I loved your speaking. Thank you.
Thank you. The way you showed up in your initial share was really powerful. And so I'm curious, what do you feel so far? Everybody's given some incredible stuff here. What do you feel like that you could possibly still be butting up against?
If I'm getting really, I'm going to go really deep into the being really authentic right here, but, and I'm going to be leaking some negative energy, but this is where it is like, I'm not smart enough on that side of it with the the terminology and the business stuff. Like I'm really, really good in your face.
Sure.
And people love me because of my raw, authentic, really like being with people. And then you throw in like the computer and creating, creating webinars and creating all of that. That's just not. So.
Can I jump in real quick? First off, thank you for being you.
Yep.
It's challenging sometimes to be yourself, and you're about as authentic as they come. So I appreciate you for that. If you look at this smart enough, I really encourage you to take a look at who enrolled you in that belief.
Lots of people.
Mm-hmm. Have there been other things that you've overcome that people have told you couldn't? Just I'll help with time for this one. Just a yes or a no.
Not in their words.
Not
And their
in
actions.
words. I'm asking in your words, Cassandra.
I created myself to not be smart because of people's actions. And it has nothing to do with them. It's me.
Okay. So you can see it's your story you're living in?
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm close on time. So somebody, Brendan said it's the who you be. Yeah. So I'd encourage you to take a look at what's missing from the equation and who I need to be. Okay. Because from what I see here, I'm sorry, I just hit time. What I see here is that there's a lot of past tense language that's being created in your language right now that you're bringing as though it's happening. I struggle. You just put a D on that. I struggled. Then your mind stops it in this moment at 12:51 p.m. and allows you to create something new. Look, I can get a full-on agreements from the people on this panel right now that you have everything you need to get where you want to go. That's all in the how-to stuff. It's easy. Brendan is an expert at challenges. Talk to him. He knows what he's doing. I had a 45-minute conversation with him and changed the way I market my stuff. Talk with him about the how-to stuff. I'm telling you, take a look in the mirror and just ask yourself the questions, who am I? And just hang out with your responses. Take a look at, you are restricted from coming up with anything not positive. I'm restricting you from the responses. Okay? Hang out with yourself. I'm pretty sure you're going to get to know a really powerful, powerful young lady.
Thank you.
Just real quick. So who, not how. Cassandra, you are brilliant at what you do. You know exactly how this works. People are coming to you. You are smart enough to figure out who is the expert in what you need. It is not your job to figure that out yourself. And it doesn't matter if it's any one of us on here or we point you in the right direction. Get the person that will do it a million times faster than you. There's plenty of stuff I don't do that I reach out to people here and they do it for me. Okay.
You want my cell phone number?
Huh?
You want my cell phone number?
Sure, that's fine. But I'm happy to help you. We all are happy to help you, but just it's always who, not how. It is not that you're not smart enough, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Dave.
Sandra, I do not have advice for you. I have a question and an acknowledgement. And the question is, how much of God am I willing to receive and allowed to be expressed through me? And the acknowledgement portion is, you are that already. The fact that who you're being brought you to this, brought you to the Ultimate Coach, brought you to Dom, it's the reason I know you, is all who you are being already. And the divine that's streaming through you and your and Scott's relationship, your children, the difference you make in the world is remarkable. I wanted to do a callback yesterday to something that Kellen said, which is, you don't go fishing in the dirt. You have created the prime fishing place, and that prime fishing place is you, your front, your driveway, wherever it is that you're meeting with clients, and creating a relationship that where they feel the power of you. And regardless of how you're relating to yourself, I can testify that you are inspiring the hell out of me and Dom and all these other people that you're meeting up with. So I am in the act of, well, I am creating that as well. I create that as well. I create spaces where people feel that. But I just wanted to make sure you knew that how greatly I admire and appreciate and am just inspired by who you are and what you've already done. And yeah, the rest of the stuff will grow. Outsource it to some of these guys if you'd like to. There's plenty of people that can do all the background stuff for you. You don't even have to know it if you want to. And you're brilliant enough to do it like that. And that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. So Cassandra, has this helped? I mean, look at the support you have around you. And I promise you that this is just a small group of the support that you have around you that can help you get to where you're going and help you get over some of these things.
Yes. And I am surrounded by the greats, and the biggest great is just right here next to my side, and believes in that 100%. And he's really, really smart with all this other stuff that I feel like I struggle with. And so the best part that I took away just now was that, yeah, I don't have to be knowledgeable in all those other areas, that I can have those other ones. And that was where I saw the vision, I saw everything. And then I was like, yeah, but I don't even know where to start, like on that side of it. Like I got this other side down really well. I just didn't know where to go. And so I appreciate that. And yeah, and you guys saw the deep, deep little girl that, that I have. And that's okay that I'm not smart like that in that area, that I don't understand all of the funnels and I don't understand all of that. And now I'm okay with that too. And letting somebody else help me out on that end. And quite frankly, I don't enjoy any of that other stuff yet. I might. So I really don't care if I'm not really great at it, because I'm not really that thrilled by all of it. And yet I see the potential of what it can do for me. So I appreciate that, of just releasing that thought that I have to be all of those other things too, to be even greater success.
Right. And so for those of us who have been coaches or marketers for some time now, that's one thing well, at least I talk to my clients about, is that if it's something you don't enjoy, let somebody else do it for you. Do the things that you enjoy, get better at those. There's lots of folks out there who say, oh, you need to get better at the things you're not good at. I disagree. Be who you are, be good at what you're good at, and let somebody else take care of the rest. Like Erin said, she pays people to do her funnels,
Okay.
I've known Erin for 4 years, and this woman is a marketing genius, but as she is tech savvy, no. So Teresa, I apologize. We are out of time for today, but if you want to send me, anyone who's on this call or watching the recording, if you got to send me questions, again, this is for the VIP holders only. So if you want to send me questions, I can distribute them and we can get whatever answers we can from our wonderful panel of speakers. Just want to say thank you to everybody for being a part of this. Our speakers, especially, I know this is a Sunday. You guys have sacrificed much of your time. Everyone has sacrificed much of your time on the weekend when you should be with your families or working on your businesses. So I want to take some time to thank you all and appreciate and love you all.
We love you, Tony.
Yes, thank you.
We sure do.
Thanks for letting us be here, man.
And I will drop this recording. Actually, it'll probably be later this afternoon, evening, because my family time is happening right now after we hang up. So, so make it a great rest of your day, guys, and we will talk to you real soon. Awesome.
Tony,
Thank you, guys.
Tony,